Stand up, New York Giants fans. We're back. We're going to be starting the 2-day. We talked about it this week. We're going to be starting the 2-day show routine starting next week as the regular season gets underway. Probably like a Tuesday, Friday type schedule. Recap week one's game where Daniel Jones looks like shit. Previewing week two's game where Daniel Jones looks like shit. I'm kidding, of course. I know. I know Giants fans are up in flames on Twitter after the preseason performance, but no, all kidding aside, I'm excited to be back. Bad Dog, man, what's going on? How was your week?
Yeah, week's over. Thank God. It's Friday. TGIF chat. Talking some Giants football. Obviously got a game tomorrow against the Jets. Now it's on my channel, but so hopefully this way. I mean, I looked now in New York City or the areas around there. It's on CBS. As you know, I do not get Jets games on CBS up here. I get the Bills for whatever reason. So they're not on CBS, but they're supposed to be on NFL Network for everybody outside of the city. So I think it's a nationally broadcast thing. So let's hope that that's the case. But that's where I'm going to have to watch it, is NFL Network. And it does say it on my, my guide that live Giants versus Jets. So it doesn't say it on CBS. It says
right. We had the problems last year with the Giants.
So I do believe that it is going to be on NFL Network, not just for us in the upstate area or like the tri-state area, but like the whole, I think everybody gets that game.
Yeah. So should be fun. I just want it to be over with. I don't expect the starters to play really at all in that game. I think it'll be something very similar to week one when they had the joint practices against the Lions. The first teamers, they got to get their reps against the Lions first teamers, something similar here with the Jets. So I think the Giants, it's more about the back end guys, evaluating them, seeing who's going to be the guys that just make the roster. But I don't expect to see Daniel Jones out there, the first team offense, defense. We'll see. But obviously they got the majority of their reps last week when the offense played the entire first half. So I just want football to start. I'm glad that we haven't had too many serious injuries, going into the start of the season. But we'll see how it all plays out. Let's say hello to some of our regulars before we jump into it. What's going on, Madden? What's going on, James Kent, Papaguccio in the chat? What's going on, Rick L, Big Moo, Afghanistan, and OG in every single one of these streams dating back to 1743. What's going on, Moose? Thank you to everybody for being here. Appreciate all you guys. Somebody asked if we're Democrats or Republicans. We're Giants fans. That's all there is to it. But we don't talk.
We're Americans. Yeah, we are Americans.
What's going on, Slink? What's going on, Zany? Hey guys, what's happening? What's going on, Scott Young? What's going on, Anthony? Thank you to everybody for being here. Appreciate all you guys. And yeah, I mean, listen, not a whole lot to talk about. I know we were talking about briefly before the in terms of current events. Talking about briefly before the show started that Sauce Gardner was kind of standoffish when he was asked by the New York media about Daniel Jones, but can't really blame him. The way that Daniel Jones looked in his first preseason game, and hopefully he proves a lot of doubters wrong. That's the word I'm going to continue to use because that's all I got. I hope Daniel Jones and the New York Giants surprise a lot of people this year, and in recent history, it would suggest otherwise. But hey, that's why they play the games. They shocked us in 2022. Hopefully they can do something similar this year. That's all there is to it, and I'm going to reserve judgment until the start of the regular season, good or bad. I'm not going to overreact to a bad preseason game, as bad as it was for Daniel Jones, and I'm not going to overhype anything that they look good. To me, it doesn't mean a whole lot in the preseason. It's the regular season where it counts. This, to me, is practice, so I'm not going to go crazy yet. Yeah,
it was funny. They asked Sauce Gardner, and he was trying not to say anything bad. If you watch that interview, he was like, "Yeah, he's good." That was the way he said it. So obviously, if you could read between the lines, read between these lines, that's kind of what Sauce Gardner was saying. He was saying, "F him, he sucks." I made a post-game video on it last week, and so the Daniel Jones thing's always going to be. Somebody mentioned, "Are you Democrats or Republicans?" And we don't talk about politics here because it's a sports show. But I look at the Daniel Jones thing like politics, because it seems like you have to be on one side or the other, and I don't play that. I will give you my honest opinion of him, whether he's good or bad. Yeah. And people seem to get mad at that, and I don't know why. If he's good, I'll tell you he's good. If he's bad, I'll tell you he's bad. And I will play devil's advocate with both sides of that. When somebody says, "Oh, it's just preseason, it's just preseason." I'm like, well, what about the past 5 years? They're like, I'm not going to look at one game in the preseason. I'm like, what about the last 5 years? He's not a rookie. And again, I mentioned the throw to Hyatt that was intercepted. I can live with it. It was a bad throw. It happens to every quarterback. Every quarterback makes bad throws. Even Pat Mahomes, even Tom Brady, even Joe Montana. They've all made bad throws at a time or two. That was rust to me. But the interception, the end zone, is a bad decision. And that's what worries me, because that's the type of thing we've seen from him for 5 years, is the brain freeze, right? The gaff that he just holds on to the ball too longer. He stares down the receiver. And then there was a desperation throw. Like, you don't do that. You have to read.
Well, it highlighted what Daniel Jones's biggest problem is at this point. Right. I think most Giant fans unanimously will tell you Daniel Jones's biggest flaw is his inability to scan the field as quick as they see some of these other quarterbacks. And again, it's preseason, so I'm not going to go bananas. But listen, like you said, it's been. I can't slam people for coming down on him, because he hasn't given you a whole lot to cheer about. I just have the mindset I'm not going to overreact, or in good or bad, when it comes to preseason football. But yeah, that's been a problem of his since he's come into the league, his inability to read the field. And when you're backed up on your own 5-yard line, you got to be able to get that ball out quicker. You have to be able to identify that you got to get that ball out of your hand. You got to take the incomplete pass. I said during the live stream, I could understand once it got to the point where he was backed up in his own end zone that he didn't want to take a safety, so he didn't want to just throw it into the stands. But you got to be able to identify that before that point. You got to get rid of that ball, knowing that, you don't have a lot of time to get rid of the football. So I understand where people come down on him for that. And we'll see if it happens in the regular season. I'm going to be joining the club. There's no doubt about it. Listen, this is Daniel Jones's last shot. We said that in 2022. He played well enough to keep his job. He's got to do the same thing this year. We'll see if he's able to do it. That's what it comes down to. And we'll see in a couple of weeks, starting against Minnesota. That'll be his first test. Mark says, salute Chris and Baddog. With the negativity going on these days, I have a feeling we're going to score points. I hope you're right, Mark. I pray you're right. I hate coming on here when the Giants stink, which it's been that way outside of 1 year.
Started 6-7 years ago.
Outside of every year since we started, it's been that way. I pray you're right, Mark. But history says you'll be wrong, because Giants fans have been negative all along since I've been on YouTube, and rightfully so. I mean, they have every right to be negative. The team's been a joke. It's been a dumpster fire. But, Mark, I'm going to go into the year. I don't want to necessarily use the term optimistic, but I refuse to go into the year doom and gloom. I refuse to do that. To me, that takes the enjoyment out of being a fan. It's the NFL at the end of the day. Team surprise every year. It's a possibility. I'm going to be open-minded and hope that this team shocks some people going into the year. I'm not telling you I'm predicting it, but I'm also not going to tell you that this team is going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. We'll see the product on the field come 2024.
And I agree. I mean, listen, I'm not going to lie. The interception upset me because it was PTSD. I'm like, he's got to stop. I mean, is he ever going to figure out not to do that? Because again, it's one preseason game, but it's year 6. He can't make those mistakes. It's a bad play. But I'm not going to sit there going into the year because he made that bad play going, oh, God, just throw the year away, tank, get 2 wins, and Joe Shane should be fired, and this and that, and wow, stupid are the Giants. And I'm not going into the year like that, okay? Like Chris said, I'm not going to use the word optimistic. I'm hopeful. Listen, man, I called Daniel Jones menopause in my post-game video because he's flashy, right? He has hot flashes. And that's why I've been frustrated. Like, he frustrates me. That's the one word. When I put something on Twitter that said, hey, finish a sentence. Daniel Jones is, and for me, the word's frustrating because he shows you that he can, at some points, he looks really good. Like, he looks like, wow. I mean, this is the guy we picked. But that's not consistent. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot more bad than good, which is why people are down on him. We've done a lot of losing. Yeah. I mean, people compare him to Eli in the first 4 years, and I know Eli struggled, right? But this was the difference. And I talked about the game I went to Minnesota when I saw a guy burning his jersey outside the stadium when they lost 42-17. And Eli did. But there was 2 things about Eli. Number one, he turned the ball over a lot, but in 2005, he was tied for 4th with 24 touchdown passes. Okay, the game has changed. Daniel Jones is 24 touchdowns. That would have been 14th last year, 24 touchdown passes. The game was different. The Giants won the division in 2005. they made the playoffs in 2006. They won the Super Bowl in 2007. So even though Eli was struggling, if you want to call it struggling, he didn't have the highest pass accuracy. Of course, play calling had a lot to do with that, Chris.
Yeah.
But they were winning games. So it eased the pain of his growing pains.
Yeah.
And he won a Super Bowl in year 4. Now, if Daniel Jones had that same success, if Daniel Jones would have won if he would have struggled like this, but won a Super Bowl in his 4th year, people would give him a break.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he deserves a break, but the fact of the matter is the team around him has also been very poor. It has not been a good team. The offensive line has sucked. He has not had a playmaking wide receiver until now. Okay. And he's had a number of head coaches, a number of offensive. They have not helped him. And the Giants have been a very bad team. So it comes down harder on him, not to mention he was picked 6th overall, and everybody thought we reached
the $40 million a year contract doesn't help.
That too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pressure on him. He was a 6th overall pick. He got a big contract. Fans expect him to elevate. They don't expect him to be carried. They expect him to elevate. And I understand it.
Yeah, of course.
But if we would win some damn games, like I said, it would ease the pain of, he had another bad game. He threw 2 interceptions. If you're winning football games, you can live with it. So
things change in a New York minute. Things change in a New York minute. Going into 2022, we were all prepared to move on. We saw the writing on the wall. They didn't extend them on the 5th-year option. Things could change in a New York minute, but at the end of the day, Daniel's got to produce, and we'll see if he's able to.
Yep.
Going into last year, I think a lot of Giants fans were on board, or at least open-minded to the idea that I don't think most rational Giants fans going into last year thought that Daniel Jones had already proven that he was a franchise guy. But right. I think there were myself included in this. I think that we said, okay, we saw enough given the situation that the Giants were put in due to the fact that the team won as many games as they did, the way that Daniel Jones played down the stretch, the growth that he showed in 2022, that with another year in a good offensive system, something that he has not had since he's been in the league, back-to-back years with a good offensive play caller, a little bit more help around him, maybe he can grow and get better. I think that was a large portion of Giants fans going into last year. That was the mindset that they had. Things went up in smoke. But listen, football is a crazy game, and things can change. And the great thing about it is Daniel Jones has the ability to go out and do it. At the end of the day, is it the perfect situation? No. It's not. It's still not. Is it better than any situation he's had since he's entered the pros? Yeah. Malik Neighbors alone does that for him. It's by far his best wide receiver since he's been in the league. It's now his 3rd year with Brian Dable. Dable's now calling the plays. You bring in Brasillo. You hope that the offensive line is at least passable.
It looked good against the Texans.
So we'll see.
They didn't allow 1 sack in that game.
But I'm not gonna say any false hope. I am past the point at this point of believing that Daniel Jones is going to be a franchise quarterback. And when I say franchise quarterback, I mean a guy that year in and year out is going to be able to carry your team to Super Bowl contention. A guy like not that it would be Pat Mahomes, but Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, even a guy like Jordan Love. That guy's a franchise quarterback.
Right.
Daniel Jones will not ever enter that level, in my opinion. And I pray to God he proves me wrong this year. I do. I say that every year. 2023, I was open to the idea maybe he could evolve into that. Never did. And it is what it is. And I get where Giants fans are at when it comes to that. They want hope. And they know it's a quarterback-driven league. And without one of those franchise guys, it's very hard to compete to win Super Bowl. So I understand where Giants fans are at. But at the same time, you can't force a quarterback pick because that's why we got into the spot that we did. So we'll see what happens next year if the opportunity presents itself. But this year, Jones is the guy. And I'm going to hope he proves myself wrong. I just went out and said it. I don't think he's ever going to be a franchise quarterback. I hope he proves me wrong. I hope he proves you wrong. I hope he proves everybody in this chat wrong. Because I don't think many people are in his corner at this point in terms of believing that he could be a franchise quarterback. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm a fool. I hope we're both fools, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're fools anyway, but hopefully we're wrong about this. But yeah, I agree. I mean, he hasn't really shown you anything to prove that, hey, we can win a Super Bowl with this guy. He's good enough to win a Super Bowl. So after 2022, I would have said, he's a franchise quarterback. What we thought, at least, I'm guessing you think the way I did. He turned a corner.
The
Giants paid him.
There was reason to see if he could grow further.
Correct. And then that's why the Giants did what they did. And some people still don't understand that. I was like, what were you going to do? You were picking 25th. Saquon Barkley did not sign. So you could not tag Jones. If you tag Jones, Barkley walks, so that you can forget about that. Okay. And if they let Jones walk, how are you gonna sell your fan base on we're going into the year with Tyrod Taylor? I mean, no offense to Tyrod Taylor, but you just won a playoff game with this guy.
Yeah.
And they pretty much paid him based on what they thought he could do. And I always use the contract as they gave him a 2-year extension with a 2-year team option, meaning he's there for 2 years. And if he doesn't prove it, they're going to cut ties with him. He doesn't get to make that decision. So this really is his last hurrah. If he plays well enough that they can't get a quarterback, he's going to be here next year. Yeah. And if he stinks or we stink, he's gone. There's a rich, it's maybe not as top heavy as this one, but there's a lot of good quarterbacks in this draft. There's Carson Beck. There's Cameron Ward, who I love. There's Shedeur Sanders. There's Quinn Ewers. There's Jade Milroe, right? So
even if they're not in a position to draft one of those guys, if say they're picking 12, then those guys
trade up,
or even if that's not a possibility, that doesn't mean that Daniel Jones is back. Right. You could go the Seahawks route when they brought in a guy like Geno Smith as a stopgap for a year. If Daniel Jones doesn't prove worthy enough to come back for $20 million, because that's the amount that you would save if you would cut him, he's not coming back.
Right.
You could save $20 million if you move off him. So he has to prove this year that he's a good starting quarterback. He doesn't. I don't necessarily. I'm not going to go as far to say great franchise, but he's got to at least match his 2022 year, where he gets into the playoffs unexpectedly. He plays smart football. He makes key third down conversions. He wins some games unexpectedly. He's got to at least meet that, and I hope he does. I mean, I would love to be calling a playoff game with you again this year.
Hell yeah! And the thing that he did the best in 2022 was take care of the football.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he did best. He stayed healthy. He had the lowest interception percentage in football. People can say he only threw 15 touchdowns. It's fine. He only threw 5 interceptions, and he ran for 7 more. So I will take 22 total touchdowns and 4 interceptions any day of the week from Daniel Jones. Now, I think that he can do better, but he's got to stay healthy. And
that's a key thing too. The guy's only had 1 year where he stayed healthy.
Right, he's got to stay healthy, and he's got to find some kind of confidence in himself. I mean, he doesn't. 2022, I saw a guy that was confident, and this is why the Giants were coming back in these games. You know, I talked about this years ago when the Giants were talking about this culture, the culture this, culture that, and I would say hashtag WBC, winning builds culture. You called it week 1 in 2022. Hey, Baddog, do you think that if they go down there and score, they're going to go for 2? It's exactly what they did. Brian Daboll said, I believe in you guys. Go out there. I'm not playing for the freaking tie. I want to win. I believe in you guys to get the win. And they got a big win. Now, granted, Tennessee went down the field, missed the field goal, but we won the game. Yeah. Then they came back against the Packers and then the Ravens. Like, they showed the propensity to come back because they felt, hey, you know, we've been here before. We can do it. And the same thing happens when you're a losing franchise, which we've been most of the time, is here we go again. It's like when Dallas blocked the field goal and scored a touchdown. All of a sudden, all the air is out of the balloon. Oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
Here we go again. And that, Chris, when Jones threw that pick, that's exactly, even though it's a preseason game, that's exactly how I felt. Here we go again. Yeah. Not to mention his first pass should have been a pick 6. So I was like, here we go again.
Yeah,
I mean, we laughed. His first pass, you and I were cracking up.
We've said it now the last couple of shows that the first game is so important in the NFL. The last 2 years, all you got to do is look at the last 2 years. They were the defining games of the year. That set the air came out after week 1 against Dallas last year. We went into it like gangbusters, or a lot of fans did. Not that we thought we were Super Bowl contenders, but we said, listen, it's a harder schedule, but this team got better. They could win 9 games, and they could get stronger from within the division.
Right.
1 game, done.
Done.
At that point, like, we're like, all right, we'll be lucky if we win 6 or 7 games this year. And the reverse last year, like you said, the Titans game set the tone. It gave the team hope, and they built off of it. So week 1 against Minnesota is so important to get off to a good start.
Absolutely.
Christian Baddog's intern, the only intern in the world, and that's why we love him. That's how you know how good we are. The only intern in the world that pays us. Baddog, we don't only not have free interns. Our interns pay us.
That's right.
To help out.
That's right. Huge.
But we appreciate it, Christian Baddog's intern here checking to make sure everything's good before I shoot up a cornerback tomorrow. We might need you. The secondary supposedly is getting cooked against the Jets. We know that's the biggest question mark on the defensive side going into the year. Hope. That's the only word I come up with that, because there's a lot of unproven commodities on that side. We'll see. We'll see how Tyler Nubin grows throughout the year. He's a rookie. You don't want to set expectations sky high there. Deontay Banks, his first year of being a real, true number one corner from the start of the season. So there's a lot. I think there's going to be a lot of growing pains there. But what's going to ease the growing pains is if the guys up front could get to the quarterback. That's what they're
banking. They brought in Brian Burns. There's a big reason they brought in Brian Burns to help with the pass rush. One thing I want to ask you, obviously, they restructured Andrew Thomas.
Yeah.
They saved,
I think it was like $4 million. It was yeah.
So this is what I think the Giants are going to do. I think they did that so they could get another corner in here. Now, remember this. People are like, you got to go out and get him. You got to go out and get him. Remember this. After this week's games, there's going to be a lot of final cutdowns. So I'm sure the Giants are just going to wait to see who's cut from all these teams, and they're probably going to go after the best one available. That's my guess. I mean, I don't know that. I don't talk to Joe Shane. I should talk to Joe Shane, but I don't.
Yeah.
But I do believe that that's what they're going to do. I think once all the final cutdowns are done and you see the guys that are out there to be had, I really do think the Giants are going to bring in another corner. I don't think that secondary's set. I do think they'll bring in somebody. I could be completely wrong, but that's a good feeling. I think that's why they freed up some cap space, and that's to sign another corner. But we'll see. But I think that's what they're waiting for.
I don't think you're wrong. We'll see, but I don't know if they're going to spend a lot of money on it. But yeah, I do think they're going to bring in some kind of veteran corner that's cut somewhere. I think they need it. If nothing else, for veteran leadership. Everybody is so young in that secondary, so I do think they're going to add somebody. Pedro says, my grandfather's going to New York. Do you guys know any good shops to buy a Giants jersey? I mean, they're all over. I mean, I don't know if he's visiting Manhattan. If you go to Manhattan, there's a store in every corner where you can probably get a jersey. At the stadium, of course, they're going to have jerseys, but it's all over New York, man. Dick's Sporting Goods used to be right inside Madison Square Garden. I don't believe it's there anymore. That's where I used to go when I was a kid. But they're all over, right? If he's going to Manhattan, they have shops all over.
Yeah, there's probably a chance. I haven't been
all online anyway, but
I haven't been to Manhattan in a long time. But they had a gigantic sports store. I don't remember if it was a Champion. I think it was a Champion store. It was like 3 floors. It was huge. But yeah, if he's going into the city, I mean, you find them anywhere.
Every corner, you could probably find a Giants jersey. I mean, the sporting goods stores all over.
Yeah.
Surge, man, what's going on, man? Stand up. New member, welcome to squad, man. I appreciate that. Thank you to everybody for being here. Appreciate you guys. And Snare says, glad to finally catch y'all live. Go G-Men. We're fans of the team. We're not into any individual players. Season starts in 2 weeks. Everyone is 0-0 right now.
Correct.
That's my outlook, Snare. I'm not going to come on here and tell you that I think we're going 17-0. I'm not trying to set myself up for depression, but I'm also not going to be overly depressed going into the year. I'm going to try to enjoy the season. You wait all year, and really since like week 6 of last year, because the balloon came out then. That's when like all hope was gone.
Yeah, we were 1-5 at that point.
Like you've been waiting that long. I refuse to go into the year being like, oh, the team's going to win 3 games. The team's going to stink. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. I can't kill fans that feel that way, especially the way that things have gone in recent history. But I just refuse to be that way. I'm going to try to enjoy the season as best I can as a fan. That's the way I look at it, Snare. So I'm with you. We're 0-0 right now. We were 0-0 in 2022, and most of the people thought we'd win 4 games. We won 9. Let's hope that's one of those years. That's the beauty of the NFL. We'll see what happens when we suit up.
That's kind of where people are picking us to win now. We're like the worst ranked football team in the league. They think we're going to win 4 games. I really don't understand why. I mean, the team got better. I don't think there's any question.
We won 6 games last year.
There's no way that Saquon Barkley leaving made us the worst team in football. Like, I have a hard understanding.
Saquon Barkley, don't get it wrong. He's a player. But Saquon Barkley wasn't that good last year. Saquon Barkley averaged like 3.67, 8, 9 yards a carry, whatever it was. He was under 4 yards a carry.
4 yards a carry. He had one 100-yard game. It was against the Jets because he carried the ball 36 times. Now, granted, the offensive line had plenty to do with that. But Barkley was not winning us football games. The running back position doesn't win you football games unless you're Christian McCaffrey, unless you're a game changer that does everything well like him. And they're far and few between. He might be the only guy I can think of that's like that big of a difference because McCaffrey
becomes that maybe. But yeah, I agree. McCaffrey's the one guy at this point where you could say.
So I also brought up the point that, obviously Daniel Jones needs to prove it, but teams aren't going to think we got to put 8 men in the box to stop the running game at this point, which to me says, hey, Motor Singletary can probably average 4 yards a carry. Why can't he?
And you hope the improved receiving core with a Neighbors, with a Wandell getting more mature,
Hyatt getting more mature, Slayton, of course,
that benefits the ground game. So
right.
It's about a team. Yeah, for sure.
And it might not be Singletary. It might be running back by committee. It might be Tyrone Tracy. It might be Eric Gray.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I know he got dinged up in that second. I think it was the second preseason. It might have been the first preseason game. But I'm excited, man, for Tracy this year. I think he's gonna have a role in this team, man. I really do.
I do too. One of the guys they were talking about cutting was Dante Miller. Now I expect to see Dante Miller play a lot tomorrow. Dante Miller has been banged up, and I think this is why he's kind of on the chopping block. But again, you don't teach 4.27 speed. And when we watched him, I mean, you could see he had a lot of explosiveness, but I don't think they're going to carry 4 backs. So I don't know how they would do it. I don't know how many wide receivers they carry. They could actually technically put Tyrone Tracy as a wide receiver because he was a wide receiver in college.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I agree with you. We're probably not going to. The Jets are not playing their starters. So Salah's already come out and said they're not playing the starters. So to me, is there really a reason to play the Giant starters?
Maybe a drive at most. You
know what I mean? Right. So I expect to see, like you said, the last game of the preseason is usually just for depth purposes and guys that are going to make the team and guys that are going to be cut. That's really what you're looking for. I think what is his name? Chapman. He's going to make the team on that play alone.
That play was great.
That was everywhere. That was everywhere.
Oh, was it? Yeah. I mean,
everybody was talking about
time, man. It was impossible.
The big man running them down.
Yeah, it was great. James says, so we're going to act like the Giants in Washington didn't just give the NFC East to the Eagles with the Barkley and Dotson trade. Well, the Giants didn't hand Barkley to the Eagles. The Eagles, I think, overpaid for Barkley. They gave him a lot of money for a running back of his age. But, yeah, I mean, listen, the Eagles are good. They're better than us. That's for sure. I don't get it with teams in our division. They always seem to make trades with the Eagles. The Cowboys made the trade with the Eagles, I believe, right when they came up and got Devontae Smith. Or maybe that was Washington. It
was Dallas.
It was Dallas, yeah.
Because we picked in between them, and we moved back instead of taking Micah Parsons, which Dallas ended up taking.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, listen.
Eagles receiving core stacked.
I think that the Commanders, or Redskins, whatever you want to call them, I think they're going after Brandon Ayuk. I think that's why they got rid of Dotson. But I'll say this about the Eagles. Yeah, I mean, you got good receivers. Dotson's good. Devontae Smith's good. A.J. Brown's great. And they have Saquon Barkley. But there's one football.
Yeah.
One football. Yeah. So they can't all get the football. Sometimes less is more. And I'm not saying the Eagles are going to be a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. I'm sure they're going to win 10 games. But we've seen this with teams before where they stack their team up and they end up disappointing. And let's not forget the Eagles lost 7 of the last 8 games. And in convincing fashion, they lost. That their coordinators are both new. You have a new offensive and defensive coordinator, and their head coach was a hair away from being fired. So, I mean, going into the season, the Eagles fan base always has such high expectations. I mean, they just do. And it's
I don't blame them. I mean,
I'm saying because they've been good for a while and they make these splash moves, which would invigorate any fan base. I like to pick on Eagles fans. Don't get me wrong. And I will continue to pick on those potatoes because that's what they are. They have IQs of potatoes most of the time. They should be called the Idaho Eagles because they're Idaho potatoes. But it makes sense when your team's been competing, when you're 2 years removed from winning the NFC Championship, when you won a Super Bowl 7 years ago, you've consistently been a contender, and you do make these big moves every year. And somehow Harry Roseman's a great GM, might be the best GM in football. And you know, it makes me sick to my stomach to say these things, but he does a good job. Yeah. That doesn't guarantee the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl or win the division even.
I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I don't.
I just, again, we'll see. They're good. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say they suck. I'll say that enough at a different time, but not today.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I don't think they needed them anything.
They're the favorites going in the division. They're the favorites.
I think so because Dallas is having a hard time with.
Yeah, they're the favorites, but we play the games. We'll find out.
Boy, everybody's always talking about how I love when people are like, "Oh, it's a bad take, Bad Dog. It's a bad take." Nobody ever comes back and goes, "Man, Bad Dog, you nailed it on CD Lamb." When he drafted, I said that guy's going to be a superstar. Well, and I didn't even like Big 12 receivers, you know that. But I knew that kid was special, and he is.
He's one of the top three guys, three receivers.
He's really good. Besides Justin Jefferson, he might be the best.
I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is and Neighbors are going to be entering that class.
I hope so. I hope they're in that category. Well, not Harris. I don't really care if Harrison is or not. He's a Cardinal.
Yeah.
That's not. Really. I hope Neighbors is close to CD Lamb, Justin Jefferson. I hope like hell he's close to those guys.
Chase is up there too. There's a lot of
AJ Brown, right? Tyreek Hill. Yeah, there's some really good receivers in the league, but CeeDee Lamb is like he is elite. He is top of the top. He's right up there. I always love CeeDee Lamb, but just I don't know, Chris. Why do the Cowboys and Eagles always draft the Oklahoma Sooners? Like, why? Why do they take my college football team and then I can't root for them when they get to the NFL? That's why we took Eric Gray. I was like, yeah, a Sooner. Like,
we took Shepard too. We've taken
I love when they took Shepard for that reason.
A couple.
Yeah.
Flex says going to the game tomorrow for the first time. Well, I hope you enjoy the game, Flex, man. And he says, Christian Bader, wish I could see you over there. Ain't nobody can top the knowledge you guys give. I hope we win. I mean, there's a lot of knowledgeable people, man. We just like to have fun. We're fans at the end of the day. We love talking about this team, and we love you guys, man. We just try to bring the passion and talk about the team that we love, man. But we appreciate you for being here, Flex.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Flex. And, I don't know how much knowledge. It depends on who you ask.
Yeah. Gavin says, I'm over talking about DJ. Can or won't be. Can the season start already? Cheers for the guys in blue. Let's go, Giants.
The Daniel Jones thing will never be over as long as he's wearing blue. I wish it was different, Gavin, but no.
But he's my favorite quarterback in the league. He's the Giants quarterback. If you're the starting quarterback, I'm gonna cheer my ass off for you. That's me. I'm gonna root for my guy. He's the most important position. But I obviously can't blame fans for being down on him.
I can't blame fans for not believing in him. I would never get on a person's case for not believing in him. Okay. I'm not going to root against him, though. I don't believe in him fully. There's glimpses of I'm always hopeful that he can be like he was in 22 and they're a little better. Like I'm always hopeful, but he doesn't really give me a reason. But every time I put my faith in the guy, he ends up letting me down. Yeah. So it is hard to go into a season going, I have full confidence in Daniel Jones. Some people are like that. I understand because, like I said, he's been more bad than good, and we have been a bad team. So I understand people say, I have no faith in the guy. I completely understand it. But as long as he is wearing our colors, our jersey, our helmet, our logo, he's playing in MetLife, he's playing for the Giants, I am going to hope that he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I am not going to root against him because I don't believe in him because because of my draft reaction and everything else, and I never really was on board with the guy. I'm not going to be like, oh, God, I want to be wrong. I don't care if I'm wrong. It does not bother me, man. I made 2,500 videos. I'm going to be wrong.
And we can and not knocking people that feel this way because everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm just explaining the way I feel. We could all rant and rave and cry and scream.
I do all of them.
But at the end of the day, if you're being real with yourself, going into the year, he's the starting quarterback. Right. You know he's not going to get replaced unless he gets hurt or if he plays really bad for the first 5 or 6 weeks. So I don't know. My outlook is go into the year, and I'm going to rock with the guy. I'm going to hope that the guy performs well enough to keep this team in football games and we can win some games. That's me. I can't come down on people, though, that feel like we got to replace him. And listen, I think you're going to get your wish. I am leaning that at the end of this year, it's more likely than not he will not be the starting quarterback for the Giants. But he's going to get another spin around.
But this year he is.
Yeah.
And he is our quarterback till he's not.
Yeah, and listen, he may surprise this year. You're surprised in 2022. Let's let the year play out.
Right. Listen, man, I've said before, I'm a huge Cameron Ward fan. I would love the Giants to take Cameron Ward this year. So if they took him next year, I would never sit there. And listen, I don't know if I said this. I did a couple of live streams. I don't know if I said this here or on my live stream. On Twitter, Twitter is kind of where I do a little trolling. I'm not a big troll, but I do troll sometimes in there.
We do a little trolling. It's called we do a little trolling.
So I do a little trolling on Twitter now and again. And what I was doing last year was every time one of the quarterbacks played, Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. I would always put the schedule: LSU versus this, Washington versus this, USC versus this, North Carolina, Michigan versus whoever.
Right.
We get off to a bad start.
Cam Ward.
We got Miami versus this, Georgia versus this, Texas versus this, Colorado versus that. Trust me, it'll come back out there where I start talking about the college. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to be doing that before Halloween.
That means the team's not playing well, so hopefully not. James says, why do I feel like we're getting left behind? Teams have their running gun quarterback except for us. James, I understand where you're coming from, right? If you're a Washington fan, at least going into the year, we'll see how he plays. You feel like you have your future quarterback, a guy you invested the second overall pick in. If you're an Eagle fan, you have to believe at least you have a guy that you think you could win a Super Bowl with. You were close.
He's been there. So.
Yeah, you were this close to winning one with him, with Jalen Hurts, and he's young. I get it. I get where you're coming from. But James, at the end of the day, Shane, I mean, point to me a time if you're thinking realistically, since Shane has taken the job where he had that opportunity to take one of those future run and gun quarterbacks. He didn't, right? I mean, his first year drafting, we had the 5th and 7th pick. There wasn't a quarterback to speak of. Kenny Pickett.
None of them start. I think Will Levis is the only starter, and he stinks. And he puts mayonnaise in his coffee. The guy's a psycho.
Yeah. His second year, where was the opportunity? You were picking 25th. You weren't trading all this draft capital to move up and get a quarterback. It just wasn't realistic. And this year he tried. He tried to trade up to get Jaden Daniels or Drake May. He tried to do that. The opportunity didn't arise because the teams that were picking in those spots needed a quarterback. So, James, I think Shane agrees with you in the sense that if he could get a guy that he loves at quarterback, he wants to do it, but he's taking the alternate route because he doesn't have that opportunity. So he's trying to build up the team as best he can. So when he gets a guy that he feels he could truly put his job on the line for and truly believes in, he'll be able to maximize his ability. And I know this is a slow and steady approach, but sometimes the slow and steady approach is the right one. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out over the next couple of years.
I equate this to losing weight. You can go on a crash diet, go to keto diet. Don't get me started. That's my older channel. You can go on these crash diets and you can lose 20 pounds in 3 weeks, but you can't sustain it. You have to do that slow and steady, and it has to kind of become your routine. And that way you can sustain it for much longer, right? I do it for the rest of my life and doing what I do. And I'm a psycho when it comes to that, but that's neither here nor there. It's the same thing with a football team. You can't go out and just make all these splash moves when you're a bad team and think you're going to sustain that, because it doesn't work. See, the Eagles can do this because they've been a consistent contender for years. So they can go out and afford Saquon because the rest of their team is pretty damn good. We were not in that situation to afford a luxury position because we have so many more pressing needs: the pass rush, the secondary, the offensive line especially. And like Chris said, at quarterback, I'm glad they didn't reach McCarthy. You guys know I did not like J.J. McCarthy, and now he's out the entire year. Can you imagine the Giants having J.J. McCarthy on the shelf for a year and no Malik Neighbors? What the hell would that look like? That would have been doom and gloom for us. Yeah. That would have been a doom and gloom scenario. I love Michael Penix. Love the guy. Did not want him 6th overall. There was too many questions. There were different questions than McCarthy. He did try to get Drake May. Patriots said if it was a different situation, we would make a deal with you, but they needed a quarterback. Yeah. Daniel Jones is like a cat. He's had 9 lives. He escaped in 2022 because he had a good year. He escaped in 2020 because we weren't going to draft another quarterback, and he showed promise his rookie year, but 2020 was a very good quarterback class. Yeah. We weren't going to get rid of him in 2021. Because it was Gettleman's guy, and we picked 11th. So you really weren't going to – Gettleman wasn't going to do anything about Daniel Jones. Yeah. 2022, he was pretty much gone, but he had a great year. We won a playoff game, and then the Giants had nowhere to go with the quarterback, so we got to bring this guy back. We have to. And then last year, they didn't have an opportunity.
If they were picking where Washington was, we'd have a quarterback.
They would have had a quarterback. 100%.
That's all there is to it. And if Washington was picking where we were, they'd have Malik Neighbors. That's That's all there is to it. We weren't in the spot, and we didn't have the ability to get to the spot to get one of those guys. So
yeah, they would have went into the year with Sam Howell. They would have never traded Sam Howell.
yeah,
They would have just said, okay, we're going to ride with him again, and we're going to bring in Malik Neighbors to go with Terry McLaurin, and that would have been a pretty damn good wide receiver core. But yeah, so Daniel Jones has escaped because of situations, and I truly believe that if Saquon would have signed in 2022, they would have tagged Daniel Jones, and if Daniel Jones had the year he had last year, okay, he would have been, it was over for him because he was not under contract. So they would have went a different route one way or the other. Yeah. So the fact that Barkley, I used to say this all the time, people can, I don't understand why people they disrespected Saquon Barkley. They did not. Shane made the offer that he wanted to make to him in 2022. He didn't take it. Shane was not going to go, okay, he had another injury. He's another year older. He averaged the worst yards per carry in his career. Let's give him $40 million for 3 years. There's no way they were doing that, especially when our quarterbacks were sacked 85 times. If Barkley signs in 2022, they tag Daniel Jones. They don't need to tag Barkley. And then who knows? But I don't think Jones is here because he wouldn't have been under contract. They weren't going to give him a contract based off of last year. So that's kind of the way the dominoes have fallen. Daniel Jones is living a charmed life, must have a rabbit's foot or a lucky horseshoe up his ass. But this is it. If he stinks and we are drafting in the top 10 again, I guarantee you Joe Shane will do whatever the hell he has to do if that means giving up an extra first-round pick to get a quarterback. I will almost guarantee that. My guarantees don't mean shit, but that's my guarantee. If we're picking in the top 10, we're picking 8, he's getting a quarterback one way or the other.
I would be surprised if we're picking that high if we don't take a quarterback. James says, can you tell I'm frustrated? James, I can, but you're like most Giant fans at this point. I think the wide majority of the fan base is frustrated. I'm frustrated. Hell, I want to see a winning product. But I'm just trying to keep my cool before the year starts, and we'll get frustrated together come week 1. Chris and Bad Dog's intern, what's going on, man? He says, what's your thoughts on Flores' comments to Tua while he was a coach in Miami? Imagine if Mara hired him and the same happened to Jones, dodged a bullet. Yeah, I heard that Tua came out.
You're trading on my house?
No, I don't know what it is. I don't know. I have Opera as another search engine, and it makes that noise every now and again. I don't know what that is, but
I thought it was a train.
No, but it sounds like a train. But he said, yeah, I heard that Tua basically came out and said something along the lines that Flores was super hard on him, and yeah, I don't remember the exact. Let me see if I could find it, but I did hear briefly about it. Let me see what he said. I got it right here, I think. He said, if you woke up every morning and I told you that you suck at what you did, that you don't belong. So I guess this is Tua paraphrasing what he thought that what Flores basically said to him. If you woke up every morning and I told you that you suck at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right, and that you have somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this. Now, obviously talking about his new coach, Tua said, how would it make you feel listening to one or the other? So basically, he was saying that Flores was a guy that was, knocking him down, beating him down. Listen,
quarterback's not going to perform well. You're not going to perform well at anything in life if you don't have confidence in it. And if somebody constantly degrades you and tells you suck at it, you're going to believe it, and then you're not going to perform as well. That's why Tua had such a great year last year. It helps to have the receivers. Yes, it helps to have.
I was going to say Tyreek Hill helped,
but
yeah,
Tua was never a terrible quarterback. He has to stay healthy. I mean, that was his problem in Alabama.
I'll also say I think coaches can evolve too. Maybe Flores learns from that. He grows from that, right? We look at Dable. Dable last year, a lot of grumbling that he didn't handle the coaching staff well. That's something that he's trying to work on. So hopefully it'll be a learning experience for Flores. If it wasn't a good, if Tua wasn't responsive to the way that he tried to coach him. But yeah, obviously not a good look for Flores if all that is accurate. I mean,
the one thing I'll say about Hard Knocks, it seemed like that front office really liked one another.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they seemed like they had a good time. They're joking around about Brian Dable's 40. And I really like Carmen Brasillo. He seems like a great guy. We know what he did with Las Vegas. He is definitely Brian Dable's stunt double. But now that Dable lost the weight, it's easier to tell them apart, but they looked very similar. I still laugh at Dable thinking he could run a 5-second 40. when they said David Worthy, you were like, you could start at the 30 and he would beat you.
Dable couldn't run a 5-second 40 if you stuck a rocket up his ass. He couldn't run.
Somebody said I could probably a plate of chicken wings at the end of that, or maybe Dable said if there's a plate of chicken wings at the end of it, I could.
Yeah, he did. He did say that.
Yeah.
Snare said, Chris, please convince Baddog to get on the. I mean, he is a Knicks fan. He just does Laker games, but he's a Knicks fan.
Yeah, I've been a Knicks fan since 1984. I've been a Knicks fan since Bernard King.
He's been a Knicks fan since I was born. I was born in 85.
Right. So I've been there since Rory Sparrow and Luis Orr and Gerald Henderson. I lived through the really bad times of the Knicks in the 80s. And then, of course, I lived them again for 20 years. But I was there through the whole 90s. I lived the Bulls rivalry. John Starks is my all-time favorite player. I remember when they got Latrell Sprewell, LJ's 4-point. I remember all this stuff, man. I've been a Knicks fan for 4 years. I just don't cover the Knicks on YouTube because they conflict with my family life, and nothing is more important than my family. So I stream Laker games. I've been doing that this was my 7th year doing that, simply because most of their games are at 10 o'clock. And that just made it easier for me. I didn't plan on doing the Lakers, but people were like, Laker dog. And I'm like, well, what the hell? I'm just going to do it. Just makes it easy. I'm just going to focus on that.
I'll tell you what, the Knicks are going to be better than the Lakers this year, more than likely. And
they were better than the Lakers last year.
Yeah, so. But I'm excited for the Knicks. I think the Knicks are going to be great this year. MYG says, what's up, Chris and Baddog? Started a job at an auto body shop. The late games are going to kick my ass this season. Yeah, tell me about it, MYG. Obviously, I have a 9 to 5 now, and Sunday night and Monday night games kick my ass because obviously I stay on here and
Thursday night. Friday's a little easier to get through the day. I can do that.
Yeah. But
Sunday night games are the worst, especially when you lose to Dallas the way we did last year, and you got to wake up.
But when I do it, I stay up for 2 hours after the game and talk about it. So, I get it. But congratulations on the new job, man, MYG. And Zach Attack says, I get that fans are mad, but if you look at the long term, Shane is building the roster in a way that even if Jones fails, the next guy can succeed. That's what we're hoping. That's what we're hoping.
That's right.
But that's what I always say, Zach Attack, when you get fans that are saying we need and I get it, we do need a quarterback. But don't think about it like at this point that he's building the roster. He's drafting Malik Neighbors specifically for Daniel Jones. He's drafting Malik Neighbors for the quarterback position. And as of now, that quarterback happens to be Daniel Jones, but that doesn't mean he's going to be here much longer if he doesn't perform a hell of a lot better. So, Zach, at the end of the day, that's what he's doing. Since he's taken the job, he's tried to build up the offensive line. He's tried to build up the pass rush. He's gotten a lot better weapons at the wide receiver position. And we'll see how it plays out, right? This is a big year for Shane and his roster building. We have to see some of these younger players progress further. We need to see a big jump from a guy like a Wan'Dale Robinson. We need to see a big jump from a guy like a John Michael Schmitz. We need to see a big jump from the guy that I'm wearing his jersey, Kayvon Thibodeau. We need to see that evolve this year. But
Neal.
Yeah, I'm done with him. But we'll see. Maybe it'll pan out. But Cordell Flott, a guy like Cordell Flott, for example, he gets an opportunity this year. So we need to start to see those draft picks start to blossom. Marquette, what's going on, man? Big fan. Keep up the good work. We appreciate it, Marquette, man. Thank you so much for being here. We're a big fan of you and all Giants fans out there, man. We appreciate you for being here, buddy. And let's see. I think we're caught up in the chat. I'd love to see Evan Neal be competent. I'd love to see Evan Neal remember how to play football.
Right.
But I don't know, man. I think I'm a guy that's very patient when it comes to drafted players, but I don't know. Like Evan Neal to me, he just gives off Eric Flowers vibes. Like there's nothing. I can't remember the last time I watched Evan Neal and said, "Oh, he had a decent game. He was okay."
I don't remember that either.
Like he's slow out of the break. He's horrible in pass protection. He just doesn't do it for me, bad though.
What the hell happened to him?
Yeah, I mean, he was such a.
The two things I remember about Evan Neal: he lost all that weight and he did that ridiculous jump thing onto the pads or the platforms or whatever. I remember that. And then, of course, I remember the burger flipping comment, which I flipped out on him for that because I'm like, those people pay your salary, buddy, and you're insulting people that work for a living, and people at the stadium do that to serve us food. So, I mean, those are the two things that I remember for. One showed his athleticism, but it didn't translate to the field. And the other one was just don't fight with the fans. You're going to lose every time.
Yeah, it's fact.
The legend. There he is.
Love Bill, man. Thank you for being here, Bill. Hope you had a good week. He says, I try to be positive, But it just seems year after year after year, our GMs waste way too much of our draft capital. The talent deficit is obvious. The product will suffer until that changes. I mean, Bill, you're not lying. I don't even know if I want to use the term positive. I don't even know if I'm positive about this team. I'm not ultra negative. Like I'm trying to go into the year to enjoy the season as much as I can.
Hopeful is the word I use.
Hopeful. That's the right word. But Bill, I can't get on anybody for being negative. You know, at this point, I think most Giant fans are prove it to me. Prove it to me. Prove that you're better than than you've been over the last 9-10 years. And listen, Bill, at the end of the day, we could talk about the quarterback till we're blue in the face, and we all know that's the most important position. And we all know at some point that's going to need to be an improvement, right? We're going to need to get an upgrade there more than likely. We know that. But at the end of the day, Bill, when you talk about it every time you come in the chat, we talk about it every time we're live. Until such time we start to see competent offensive line play, this team's going nowhere. And hopefully this year we start to see that. But obviously that remains to be a big question mark as well. The two most important facets of a football team are the two biggest question marks on this football team outside of the secondary, which is a major question mark as well. But yeah, until we start to see consistent, okay to satisfactory offensive line play, I don't care who you put back there at quarterback. It will be better, which obviously a better quarterback. We ain't competing for Super Bowls until this offensive line learns how to protect at an NFL level, and something they haven't been able to do in over a decade. So, Bill, I mean, I'm with you, man. We got to see proof before we start.
I gotta be honest, and this is weird to say, but I, for whatever reason, believe this offensive line is going to be around the middle of the pack. Maybe that's my heart, not my head. I just think of what Brasillo did with that team. It was a terrible offensive line. He made them pretty average. He brings in Illuminor, who looks really good.
Yeah.
I feel like John Runyon is a massive upgrade in the, as a guard. I feel like John Michael Schmitz is going to take a step up. But I've talked about this before. This line needs to stay healthy so they can build some continuity and chemistry. Andrew Thomas is everything to this line. Yeah. He is the best lineman we have by far. He's one of the best left tackles.
He's the most important player to our offense.
That's what I'm saying. He has to stay healthy. And I think if he does, and we're healthy majority of the time, some guys might have a banged up here or banged up. That happens over the course of 17 games. As long as they're not missing extensive time and we're not doing what we did last year where, we had so many guys, this rotating door of linemen, guys out of position, guys coming off the couch, guys, whatever. We need some just solidarity there. And if we have that, I don't know. It's weird to think that one of the most common aspects, I just feel like this, I'm not going to say the line's going to be a great line, but I feel a lot more confident in them going into this year than I have any year that I can remember in recent time. I really do. Maybe it's the way they played against the Texans that I felt like they played. I understand they only play against the starters for a quarter. They didn't allow a sack. And did the throw that Daniel Jones threw the banners, he had time. That rush got there late. And he could have got rid of that ball. I don't know. Maybe it's just me wanting that to happen and trying to manifest it. But I look at that line across, and I really think that Brasillo's a good. I
think they'll be significantly better than last year, but that's still not good.
No, I'm not saying we're going to be good. I'm saying average. I think they can be average. And then you add a couple more pieces, and then I think you can start to really build that line, and that'd be great.
Yeah. And Jara says, I'm optimistic about this season. If Andrew Thomas and DJ didn't get hurt, we would be going to the season coming off 2 playoff seasons, in my opinion. We would have been close to the playoffs last year, if we're being honest. If Andrew Thomas never got hurt, if Graham Gano and Andrew Thomas stayed healthy last year, they won at least 8 games. Might have won 9. So,
they almost won 9 anyway.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Can somebody block Devin Hayes if one of my mods are in here? First he said something, derogatory about us. I don't care about that. But when he starts saying that, can somebody block him, please? I don't want that in my chat. But I appreciate my mods. Thank you. But he says, I'm optimistic about the season. If AT and DJ didn't get hurt, we would be going. Yeah, listen, I don't want to, and I appreciate your optimism, man. And I pray to God you're right. I'm not going to be negative going in, but I also don't want to set the expectations sky high. I don't want to be depressed come week 4. But listen, I do think they could be better than a lot of people are making them out to be. I don't think we're a laughingstock. I believe in our coach. I believe in Brian Daboll. And if I believe in Brian Daboll, I look around the league, Baddog. I say it all the time. If we believe as fans that Brian Daboll is a very good head coach, and I think most Giant fans believe that. I'm not saying all do, and I think there's some fans that are kind of lukewarm on him. They're like, I don't know yet. But if we believe he's a good coaches find ways to win football games. Mike Vrabel won 9-10 games every year with the Titans. A lot of times when people wrote them off, as a team that was going to fall off. Mike Tomlin does it every year when he's got nobody's at quarterback. So if I believe that Brian Daboll's an above-average head coach in the NFL, I don't think we have no talent to speak of. I think he's going to find ways to give this team a chance to compete most weeks this year. I'm not saying we're going to win most weeks, but I don't think we're going to be a laughingstock. And I think the biggest reason I believe that is our head coach. I think Brian Daboll is going to keep us in football games this year, and I think that pass rush will keep us competitive as well. I think we're going to win 8 games, 9 games. I could see 9 wins if we could stay relatively healthy. I don't think that's crazy to think. I really don't.
I mentioned it before. We were 6-11. We had our third string quarterback in there. Andrew Thomas missed extensive time. Barkley missed time. We had no number 1 wide receiver. We had a contentious relationship between Wink and Daboll. All that said, they got sacked 85 times. Should have beat the Jets. Should have never lost the game. And if Gano is right, we win that game. Should not have lost to the Bills. We had ample opportunity. Tyrod Taylor messed up once. We were interfered with on the last pass to Waller, but that's not here nor there. I thought that was a bad call. Both times, I talked about how I don't feel like they had confidence in Barkley because against the Jets, it was 4th and 1. You give the ball to Barkley. He's your best player. Get a yard win. Give the ball. It's one play on the goal line against the Bills. Give it to Barkley and win the game. That's how bad our offensive line was. You had no confidence. Either way, I felt like Barkley that's 8 games. Then we lose by 1 point to the Rams. And we were 15 yards away from beating the Eagles on Christmas. As bad as this team was, with all that shit that went on last year, they literally almost made the playoffs. So if you are a glass half full person, you could look at that and go, well, all things being considered, if we stay relatively, Andrew Thomas is healthy, Graham Gano is healthy, Daniel Jones is healthy, we added Malik Neighbors, this line should be better with running and Illuminor. You got a better coach. Priscilla and Daboll seem like they have a really great relationship. You added a Brian Burns. There's still question marks on the team, but I don't know where people get we're going to win 3 games.
Yeah.
I don't.
I think it's hope. I think those fans are hoping for that because they want a quarterback.
Chris, I'm not even talking about the fans.
Oh, you're talking about the Stephen A. Smiths of the world and all that.
Yeah, I don't understand that. To your point about Daboll being a great coach, we talked about this.
I don't even want to use the term great, but I think he's a good coach.
Chris, we mentioned this. They played for him. They never tanked. They could have given up. He could have said, "Go out there and suck." He could have said that. Go out there and suck. I want a quarterback. Go out there and don't try. They could have laid down and died, and they fought every game tooth and nail. Some games they were just outmatched. Dallas kicks the living piss out of us, but they never quit. They lost. The Raiders game was a bad one. The Saints game was a bad one, but they were competitive in a lot of games they shouldn't have been competitive in. They shouldn't have been able to beat the Packers with Tommy DeVito, but they did it.
Yeah. Should have beat the Rams too. I mean,
I'm saying they legitimately could have won 9 games.
Yeah. And Kristen Baddog's intern says it could be worse. We could have drafted Forbes. Never understood. I mean, that guy was 160 pounds, soaking wet. I understood he was a playmaker at the collegiate level, but there was a lot of people that were high on him because of his playmaking ability. I would have nothing.
I can tell you as a guy that works with Louis T all the time with the Commanders, Louis T is always very optimistic about his team.
Yeah.
I was in one of those Washington fans were destroying because he was getting cooked by Garrett Wilson all day. I'm like, man, Garrett Wilson's a big dude. There ain't no way Emmanuel Forbes is covering.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson is a great wide receiver. Yeah. I was glad they did that. How did they not take Christian Gonzalez anyway?
Yeah, or Deontay Banks.
Right. I'm saying, but I'm glad they passed because we ended up with Banks.
Yeah.
That was a weird. That's why Washington hasn't been good because they do this. They've been doing the same type of crap we have. They seem to make the wrong choice.
Yeah. And Yusef says, please rate the players from our last 2 drafts. Well, it's almost impossible to rate this last draft. We haven't even seen him play. Maybe you mean Joe Shane's first 2 drafts. I'll do that. But again, I really hate doing this, Yusef, because grades could change so rapidly with young players, right? Like if you would have asked me in 2022, what's your grade on Dexter Lawrence? I would have said like a C+. I would have said it was a solid pick, not an incredible pick. And then after 2023 and 2022, I should say in 2023, I would have said that's an A+. So Andrew Thomas, kind of the same thing. After the first year, you would have said a C+. Then you probably would have said more like a C+, B-, and then an A+. So opinions could change so rapidly with young players. So I really hate doing it so soon. But thus far, let's do it, Baddog. Let's start with Shane's first draft. First 2 picks, Kayvon and Evan Neal. Go ahead.
Well, we know Evan Neal is an F.
He's a Z right now.
Yeah, he's not good. Thibodeau, I mean,
for me, Evan Neal, yeah, he's an F, like you said, until proven otherwise. When I'm grading these picks, Baddog, I have to factor in where they were picked, the other players you could have potentially taken with that pick. So that has to be factored in. So the fact that Thibodeau was taken as early as he was, and I think he has superstar potential. I think he displayed that more in his first year than his second. He had glimpses last year as well. For Thibodeau, as of now, I would go B or B-. Like I don't think it's an incredible pick, but it's certainly not a bad pick.
Right. He was until Trayvon, until he blew up the combine.
Yeah.
Kayvon Thibodeau was, a lot of people thought he'd be the first overall pick. So yeah, he's got a lot of potential. And when we talked to Carl Banks, Banks said he's got superstar potential. He hasn't reached it yet, but he's still young. He's only going into his 3rd year. Yeah, I'm thinking B-, B. I'm somewhere in there. I would like him to be more of a consistent playmaker. I think sometimes he overcommits and sometimes he disappears, but sometimes he's all over the field. If not for Kayvon Thibodeau in 2022, we don't make the playoffs. He won the game against Washington single-handedly. Yeah. So I shouldn't say single-handedly, but the strip sack, recover fumble for a touchdown, turn the whole game around. And we made the playoffs because we won that game. He's got a lot of potential.
Yeah, I think as of now, it's a solid pick based on where he was picked. He hasn't exceeded that pick, but there's potential for a lot more. I think. I think the upside is very high with Kayvon.
Yeah.
Wan'Dale obviously was probably the most scrutinized pick on draft night when you factor in it was a relatively early pick. It was a pick on draft night where ourselves included kind of, not that we hated it, but we were kind of like, it's kind of weird. Kind of weird. You're right. At the time, you still had Tony on the roster. So most Giant fans, I think, dislike that pick more than almost any other pick in that draft on draft night. And I think you can make an argument if you factor in value, that is one of Shane's best picks thus far. And Wan'Dale's been hurt. He's been banged up. He's got to stay on the field. But when he's been on the field, especially last year, as the season progressed the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think he really showed you that he has potential to be a really talented receiver. So I think I'd go B, but with that pick right now, but I think it has potential to be a really good pick if Wan'Dale continues to progress into his 3rd and 4th year.
Yeah, again, it's hard to grade him because you usually want to give a guy more than 2 seasons. And that's pretty much what these guys have had, 2022 and 2023. And that's really it. But yeah, I'm thinking, if take the injury out of it.
Yeah.
Then it's hard to do that. But if he's on the field, that's a solid B+.
Yeah.
I think I picked Wan'Dale Robinson to have 1,000 yards. There's my hot take, is that he's going to have 1,000 yards receiving this year. I'm really high on Wan'Dale Robinson, especially adding a Malik Neighbors to the outside where he's going to draw a lot of attention. And then you got a pure burner in Jalen Hyatt and a consummate professional, Darius Slayton. I just feel like it could really open up the field for Wan'Dale to have a big year. And, Daniel Jones, depending on the offensive line, may not have time to locate deep. And that's when you hit the guy underneath. And Wan'Dale has proven he can get open, he can separate quickly, and he can make yards after the catch. I think he's poised to have a big year. I'll give him a B+ for that one.
Yeah, I want to lean more towards B+. I just need to see a little more evidence, but I certainly really like the pick. Josh Azudu, at this point, you kind of got to grade it on a scale because it was a 3rd round pick. But the guy hasn't done anything. at this point, you're hoping he could develop into a good depth player. Like, he's not even in contention to be a starter. So,
Right. D for depth.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, D for depth, D for dog shit. Like, he hasn't proven to be much. Cordell Flott, pick 81. I think that's a yet to be determined. Like, it's incomplete. Very hard player to judge. But you've seen glimpses, right? Like, he made one of the most important plays in that playoff game against the Vikings with the pass breakup late in that game. He has shown glimpses of potential, and I think this year he's playing more to his strengths on the outside. I think that's what the Giants projected him as when they drafted him, even though he played slot at the collegiate level. So I'm going to go incomplete, but I could see Flott being a player at the end of this year where you say that's one of Shane's better picks since he's been the GM. I'm not saying it will be, but I think he has the potential this year to really jump up in the opinions of Giants fans because he's going to have a more expanded role.
Right.
So I'm going to go incomplete. I don't want to rate him because we haven't seen enough of him.
Right.
Bellinger. If you would have asked us this after year one when he had a really large role in the offense, I think we would have said at least a B plus. Like,
exactly.
A great rookie year, right? Considering especially where he was drafted, I think you still got to go at least a B. Like, I think at worst, Baddog, he's a serviceable, solid tight end, which for a 4th round pick, you got to be happy with that. So I'm leaning more of a B, maybe even a B plus with that pick.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I mean, Bellinger was really good in the red zone for us. And then, of course, he got Ric Flaired in the eye. Somebody ripped the eyeball out of his socket. And then he, kind of fell off. It's actually thought Bellinger was going to have a really good year last year, and they just never really surfaced. Of course, it doesn't help when you have 3 quarterbacks and you're trying to build chemistry with 3 different quarterbacks. But yeah, I think Bellinger's got a lot of potential. And again, if you have a 4th round pick that is a starter and can be a decent starter, you got to give him a high grade because the guys in the 4th round are usually, okay, it's a depth guy or it's a special teams guy if they even make the team. So yeah, I think Bellinger, B for Bellinger.
Belton, another B, the killer Bs. Kind of a incomplete right now. It's a guy that really hasn't gotten and we're not used to this as Giants fans, right? In the past, our 4th, 5th, 6th round picks would be starting day one because of how bad the team was and how thin the roster was. We'll see if Belton gets more of an expanded role. Obviously, to date, he hasn't done a whole lot. So you'd have to go with a pretty low grade right now, but he might be a guy that morphs into a guy that you change your opinion on by year's end because he may get more of an expanded role this year, right? They've said some nice things about him in the preseason. So we'll see. We'll see what he looks like this year. So again, a guy I don't really want to grade yet. It's hard for me to grade that pick.
Hard to grade Belton, but what you saw at the end of the year last year is he knows for the football.
Yeah.
He takes the ball away. He recovered a couple fumbles, got a couple interceptions. So if he's able to do that, he could end up with a high grade. But I don't think he's played enough. Of course, he had injury problems at the beginning of last year as well. And then he kind of came on to the end, and he's going to have a much bigger role this year, even though they drafted Newman. I would imagine losing McKinney is going to put, him into the forefront. Like Belton's going to have an opportunity to get a lot of plays. So, I mean, just watching him play, like at the end of the last year, if you just pick like the last 4 games, I'd say it's a B because I think that, again, taking the ball away is a big thing for guys in the secondary. But it's tough to tell because, again, he hasn't really had
he's in the same boat as Flott. Maybe, you get more of a read on this year if he has more of a role in the defense.
Yeah.
McFadden for the pick, 5th round.
A.
At least a B at a bare minimum if you're being a really crucial grader. But when you factor in how late he was picked, the guy's been a contributor.
He was one of our best defensive players last year, man. I would give him an A. Now,
yeah, it's a good pick. Great pick.
The thing with McFadden is he was drafted because he's a good blitzer.
Yeah.
And we know Bowen don't do that. So we'll see how, and again, that's
great. He got hurt too. So,
but under Wink's system, I would have given him an A. So yeah. And then of course he has the hip injury. I don't know how serious that is.
Yeah.
But I do like Micah McFadden a lot. And even if he's not an A in Bowen's system, I think he's still is one of those. He looks like a middle linebacker. Like he's just a guy that just throws his body in there. He goes all out all the time. And he's kind of, I love him and Okereke together. I think they're a great tandem. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. But I think that pick was an A because he was a big contributor last year. He was great last year.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for as late as you got him, it's good value for sure. DJ Davidson, I mean, I guess I'm not going to go like an F or a D here. It's at this point, you're talking late, fifth round, sixth round. A lot of times those guys don't even stick on the roster after 2 years.
Right.
So, I mean, he's a guy that's had some snaps as a Giant. He's a guy that's strictly a nose guard who in this defense probably isn't as vital as it was in a Wink Martindale defense. So, I guess I'll go with like a C. I mean, I don't think he's a guy that's going to be a long-term contributor for this team, but it's hard to like really kill a late day 3 pick, right? So, and it's kind of the same thing with McKeithen, Beavers, kind of the same thing. Like those guys haven't morphed, but I guess if you want to be like a jerk, you could say Fs or Ds, but I mean, you don't expect much out of 6th and 5th.
It's tough because those guys are picked, but I always when Chris and I covered the draft, we always kind of want to hit. We always want to pick the guy we think they're going to pick. Just say, "Oh my god, I got one." But nobody really knows. Like I've never understood why people get so upset about. Oh, we should have taken this guy with the 219th pick. I mean, nobody gets there that late by mistake. You know what I mean? There's guys we can root for, guys that we prefer, but I don't know how you could ever get mad at one of the picks.
Well, there are guys that surprise, but as fans, you don't, you're throwing darts at a board.
Right now, who knows? Now, I've liked Muasau a lot. I didn't know who he was when we drafted him, but I liked him a lot in the preseason so far, right? And he was our 6th-round pick, so who knows what it'll be in the regular season, but so far, I like him, But again, those guys go 6th in the 6th round. There's a reason. It's not like, oh, well, the guy was supposed to go 8th overall, and then he got in trouble with the law, or some medical thing happened and he drops the 2nd round, like 35th. Like that's like who's the guy? Nakobe Dean fell because of
right.
Like that type of thing. That's different. You don't fall to the 6th round because of something stupid if you have 1st or 2nd round talent. So
and last year I don't even want to grade anybody. Like it's way too early. Like John Michael Smith's year 1. Deontay, like Jalen Hyatt didn't have much of a role. Like it's just too early. Like the only draft I even feel like remotely comfortable even putting any kind of grade on is the
Banks.
1st. Yeah, I like Banks, but it's been 1 year, right? So
he was really good last year, though. I'd give him an A-.
I love the pick. Eric Gray didn't play much. Jordan Riley didn't play much. So like, I don't know. Let's see how these guys look. Give them another year in Giants blue, and we'll see how they grow. Right. Hyatt looks like he's gonna have more of a role this year, so we'll get a better vibe on him. But I kind of don't want to grade that draft quite yet. I want to wait till after this year before I could give like a real grade on how I feel about those players. But I mean, when you think about it, Bad Dog, the grades we gave, it's not a horrible draft. I mean, I think ultimately, if it continues trending the way that it is, the Evan Neal pick is going to be a huge black eye on Joe Shane.
That's been his worst pick by far.
Yeah. And, with some of the other options and alternatives you could have made with that, you could have Garrett Wilson, right? I mean, I think he was in that draft. And there's so many other players you could point to, basically anybody that was drafted in the first 4 rounds at this point.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I'll grade that draft for you, Yusef. Last year, I don't really feel comfortable doing right quite yet. Asian Jesus says, first super chat. We appreciate that, Asian Jesus. What do you think of the Giants trading for J.C. Horn rumors? I mean, to be honest with you, I haven't even kept up with those rumors. I haven't even heard about that. Maybe that's on Twitter. I haven't even heard about that. I would like for them to bring in a corner, whether that's him or whether that's somebody else. We were talking about that at the top of the show, whether it's a trade, whether it's a guy that they pick up after somebody makes a cut before I think they need more talent in that secondary. So wouldn't be opposed to it. And the Giants have showed willingness to make trades before, so I wouldn't be stunned. But we'll see. I honestly, Bad Dog, I didn't even hear about the J.C. Horn news.
There's that, and the Surtain rumors have been around since before the draft.
I remember those. Yeah.
So, who knows? I honestly don't think they're going to trade for a guy. I really do think they maneuver the cap around so they could sign somebody that gets cut. That's really what I believe. But I would not mind. Chris, we need an upgrade there. We need a second corner. If they brought back a Dory Jackson, it's not going to hurt my feelings. He's the youngest guy that's out there, and he knows.
I can't believe nobody signed him yet. Not that he's great, but he's still a serviceable corner.
Yeah, he's 29 years old. He's like the youngest one out there. Like, how old is Gilmore? He's in his 30s, right?
I think he's like 33.
I thought he was like middle 30s. So, I don't know. I don't think they're done, though. I do think they'll do something with the second. Don't know if they'll trade. Don't know if they'll sign a guy, but I don't think that's complete. I think they'll do something before the season starts.
Yeah, for sure. Whether that's JC Horn or somebody else, I think they're going to add somebody. Corp says Daniel Jones was supposed to be our Eli 2.0. Instead, he's turned out to be Dave Brown 2.0. Well, if we're being honest, Corp, he has a lot more similarities to Dave Brown even before he took the field. Obviously, both went to Duke. They had the same number while they played at Duke. So I always likened him more to a Dave Brown in terms of, before he started to become a Giant, right? Just because of the school he went to and the fact that he was kind of an unknown coming in. But yeah, he has not been our Eli 2.0, unfortunately. And hopefully it doesn't take that long for us to find our Eli 2.0 because we need an Eli 2.0.
I will say this. He's way better than Dave Brown was.
I agree with that. In terms of
anybody that watched that guy play, he showed nothing. He was
horrible.
Nothing.
Danny Cannell was better than Dave Brown.
Right. He showed, at least Daniel Jones once in a while gives you something like, oh, look at Dave Brown. You never got a feeling Dave Brown could turn a corner. You were never frustrated Dave Brown because he just sucked. This guy is just ass. When you get benched for Danny Cannell and then Kent Graham, pretty much tells you where your career is. So I'll give Jones. He's closer to Brown than Eli.
Yeah,
he's not as bad as Dave Brown was.
No. I agree with that. Dave Brown was god awful. I remember, as a kid growing up watching Dave Brown, it was hard to watch because the Giants actually had a really good defense back then, but Dave Brown held them back. Manny says, let Jones play behind a respectable offensive line and see what happens. I hope we have a respectable offensive line. He says, I think we may be in for a surprise. Also, does Judge hit? How many does he have right now?
49.
So they got about 35 games left or so.
He can definitely hit 12. His numbers in the last 90 games are absolutely ridiculous. He's hitting 385 with 40 homers. It is something ridiculously.
Well, yeah, we talked about it last week. He the first month he was not very good. And since then he's been
they're Lou Gehrig numbers. It's insane.
Yeah.
He could win the Triple Crown. He was only 1 for 4 tonight, so he's hitting 333. And Bobby Witt's having a great year.
I was surprised. I looked at the standings last night. Actually, the Yankees. I think I want to say they have the best record in the American League. I think. And
it's moving around a lot. It's everybody's so close. Them, the Orioles, the Guardians.
I think the Dodgers have a half game lead over the Yankees for better overall record, but in the American League, I think the Yankees have the best. And the Mets are a game and a half out of the last wild card. So at least
Dodgers are 1.5 game ahead of the Yankees for best record in the major leagues. Milwaukee's right there. Phillies are right there.
Phillies kind of tapered off a little bit.
They all did. The Orioles tapered off. The Dodgers, every good team fell into a slump.
Yeah. And John says Raiders O-line was ranked 10th last year by PFF. Giants now have 40% of their O-line, and they have their O-line coach. Add Thomas and Runyon, plus Ed Mannertz and a fullback Johnson. I think the O-line won't suck. I'm leaning that they won't suck. And the thing that gives me optimism, John, is the fact that this dude, the offensive line coach we brought in, turned what was a god-awful offensive line before he got there with the Raiders into a respectable offensive line. They ranked 10th and 12th the 2 years that he was there. So, hopefully he could do that for us, man. Hopefully we're a top 15. Hopefully we're a top 20 offensive line. I would kill for that. So, hope, man. That's all I hope, John. Mm-hmm. We'll see. But, yeah, I do think
they added Van Roten, too. I forgot about that. So, it's another guy that he coached.
Yeah.
That's 40% of the line. But I told you maybe 10 minutes ago, call me crazy, but I feel pretty good about again, not great, but I feel like that line could be respectable. I don't think it's going to excel. It's going to be a great offensive line, but I think it could be average. I really, truly believe, as long as they stay healthy, and Andrew Thomas is the key, but I truly believe that can be an average offensive line.
And it's the Manning's fault. They co-signed for Jones. I don't think Eli Manning made the pick for Daniel Jones. Ultimately, that's Dave Gettleman. Dave Gettleman and Pat Shermer were the people that are going to be held responsible for that pick. I'm not going to blame Eli Manning for the Giants drafted Daniel Jones.
Yeah, just because they have ties to Eli Manning. Dave Gettleman watched Daniel Jones play one series at the Senior Bowl and goes, "That's my guy." What are you doing? You can't do that. You can't look at one series.
Yeah. And Weiland says, just praying DJ can at least throw 15 touchdowns this year. I'm praying he could throw more than that. I'd like to set my sights higher than that. But if Daniel Jones plays 17 games this year with Malik Neighbors on the team, if he doesn't throw at least 15 touchdowns, I'm going to be pretty disappointed.
And we're gonna lose.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I hope he does more than that. Corey, what's going on, man? He says you guys should check out Sheridan, Arizona high school football. I'm coaching running backs. We don't punt and always go for it on fourth down. Look up Kevin Kelly. All right, man. I'll definitely. I was actually talking to my brother about this the other day. My brother can't stand the analytics of football now, where teams go for it on fourth down no matter what. But that's more and more of a growing trend. Yeah, and it's all brought about by college. The influence on college football to the NFL has been incredible. Like over the last 9 years, it has really morphed into the NFL.
The NFL has to. You know why the NFL won't do it? Well, I mean, I don't know why. I mean, you can bet on college football too. The overtime rules should be the same as college football has it right with the overtime rules. I wish the NFL would adopt the overtime rules. But I guess they don't want those guys doing all those extra plays, and they could go into 3-4 overtimes. I love college overtime. There's no tie. Yeah. You win or lose. So yeah. I love the way
I've been saying that for years. I think the NFL that's one of the things I think they should implement from college. I think the college football overtime rules are fantastic.
I love it.
It's great. Yeah. Let's see. What's the record prediction, guys? Snack. I mean, the very positive, slightly drunk Chris says 9. Trying to be grounded and not get my hopes up too high says 8. I don't think 8 wins is crazy at all. Now, of course, I'm not going to go into the year expecting Andrew Thomas to get hurt the first week.
Right.
Like if that happens, I'm going to change my prediction like it did last year. But going into the year, I think 8 wins is very reasonable. I know a lot of fans may think that's crazy, but I mean, the team won 6 last year with all the injuries that we had, without a guy like a Malik Neighbors, without Brian Burns. I don't think 8 wins is out of the realm of possibility at all. And I think it's reasonable to think they could win 7 or 8 games. Anything more than that, I probably need a couple of beers in me.
Yeah, I think the fan in me, the fan thinks we can make the playoffs. It's the fan. 9, 9, and 8 makes the playoffs in the NFC. I don't see weeks 3 through 8 are really going to make or break our season. I mean, we have to get off to a good start. Those are 2 very winnable games. Sam Darnold in Minnesota, even though they have a great receiving core, and our secondary is not the best, so that's going to be a tough matchup. But I feel like they should, although I said in one of my live streams, I suck at fantasy football. I suck at it. So you can take my words for what they're worth. Chris knows, everybody knows I don't like Sam Darnold. I have said Sam Darnold has stunk for years. That is my sleeper. There's no pressure. J.J. McCarthy's not playing. He don't have to look over his shoulder. He's not going to be pulled at some point during the year. He's playing all year if he stays healthy. And you got one of the best receiving cores in the league. If Sam Darnold doesn't succeed this year, he might as well just drop out of the NFL, because you talk about Daniel Jones having a great situation. Sam Darnold's never had anything like this. I think he's a sleeper
in the league.
But I feel like Sam Darnold doesn't scare me. Not that McCarthy would either, because he would have been a rookie. Darnold's not a great quarterback. I mean, he's got great pieces that he could have a good game, but he hasn't really proven it. He doesn't scare me. Like, I'm not afraid of Sam Darnold. I don't think Minnesota's defense is very good either. It's at home. We're wearing these damn uniforms. If the Giants can't get pumped up for this game, I mean,
if they lose to Minnesota, right now I'm at 8, maybe between 7 and 8. That's where I am. Vegas has us at 6.5, so I don't think it's outrageous to think we can win 7. If we lose to Minnesota, I'm saying 4 or 5. Like that. That's such an important game. We have to win week 1. I think we will.
They play Washington, right? Yeah. They don't. They may end up with Brandon Ayuk, but not with Suck too. But we always beat them, and they have a rookie quarterback. I mean, Jaden Daniels may be awesome, and he may not be. But when you're a rookie, there's an adjustment period, and I'm kind of glad we're getting him early in the year before he's trying to figure out the speed of the NFL and the complex defenses and how fast corners close. And you have to be very accurate. Listen, I like Jaden Daniels. If the Giants are going to take Jaden Daniels, I've been very happy. However, when I looked at highlights, and I'm not a film guy, I'm not going to say no guy. I looked at film. I can look at film. I don't really know what the hell I'm looking at. I say this all the time. Guys on YouTube do this. I know Bobby's really good at it. Bobby understands it better than most YouTubers do.
No, specifically on the offensive line.
Right. But a guy like me, just a fan, right? Yeah. We don't know what the hell we're looking at. So whatever. But I looked at the highlights, and it seemed like he underthrew guys a lot. Plus, he had Malik Neighbors, and he had who's the other guy that he had that was really good? His name's escaping me.
Thomas.
Yeah. So, and again, you're not going against NFL defense. I feel good about that game. I think Jaden Daniels might be able to run the ball well against us, but I feel like we can beat Washington. 2-0 is not out of the realm. That 3-8 is tough.
That's going to be tough.
The fan of me says we can win 9 games and go to the postseason. The guy that thinks about the Giants and overanalyzes stuff maybe and thinks about the team and thinks about, now Daboll's calling the plays. Jones, who the hell knows, says probably 7.
Yeah.
Maybe 6. But I mean, I want to lean more towards 9.
Yeah.
So I put it this way. I think the floor is 6. I think the ceiling is 10. We'll just say that.
I agree. I think our ceiling's right. I think that's most teams in the NFL. I think most teams are between 6 and 10 wins, and I think the Giants are right there. Yeah. If everything breaks right, they can win 10 games. If everything breaks wrong, they'll win 5 or 6. And that's just the nature of the league. And last year, everything broke wrong, and they won 6.
And they almost won 8.
Yeah, so
they should have won 8. They almost won 10. They should have won 8. They should have beat the Jets. They should have beat the Bills. They had those games won.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens. But
I still I'm still very high on Brian Daboll. And everybody knows I'm an impatient guy. I want to trim him out of here immediately. I want to judge out of here after 2 years. I don't care what the Giants is. I do not want Daboll gone, and I do not want Shane gone. I really believe these guys are going to build a good team, but you got to give them time as much as we don't want to hear it. And I'm as impatient as it gets. So I understand that. But I also understand that, like I said, with the diet, you can't just – Dave Gettleman did that, Chris. Flash guy, bring in a Galladay, bring in a Nate Solder, bring in whatever. And it never worked.
Yeah, and I see somebody in the chat, and this is what's fun as fans before the year starts. We all like to do the win-loss thing, and I saw somebody in the chat said the only way you could have the Giants winning 8 games is if you pick them in every 50-50 game. That's a fair opinion, but I could also say if you're using that logic, by the same logic, I could say, well, then you're not giving the Giants any upsets. Like like math common sense tells me that there's going to be probably a game or two where you think the Giants have a 25 to 30% chance that they win. That will offset maybe a game or two that you think is a 50-50 game. So it's the NFL. So would I be stunned? Like going into the year last year, I would have told you there's no way they'll beat the Eagles. They won that game. There's no way they're going to beat the Packers. They won that game. So I get your logic, but by the same token, I could say, well, if they win 6 of the 8 50-50 games or whatever whatever you deem are 50-50 games, and they win 2 games that most people think they have a 25% chance to win out of like 8 or 9 of them, which I think is reasonable to think that could happen. That's 8 wins. So I don't know. I don't think it's crazy to think this team can win 7 or 8 games this year. I really don't. They won 6.
I think we'd have to be fair. Like, I don't think the Panthers should not be a 50-50, and we should beat them. They suck. Like, we should beat Carolina.
Yeah.
So that's not the Giants will be favored in that game.
Yeah.
That's the game that we should win. And maybe Washington's, maybe most of the games are 50, but the Carolina one. So give us that one. And then it is possible that the Giants win 50-50 games, because in 2022, we were probably a 30% chance to beat the Packers and the Ravens. We beat them both. And probably the Titans the same way. Anything can happen in the NFL. I mean, you never know. You could be facing somebody's backup quarterback because somebody gets hurt, or you never know. But I mean, it makes sense. But I don't think 8-9 wins is out of the realm of possibility if the Giants stay healthy.
It's the NFL. I think most teams have a chance to win 8 or 9 games. It's just the nature of the league.
It's very competitive, and the NFL there's a lot of parity, especially in this division. Yeah. Nobody's won. I mean, it's been most of the Cowboys and Eagles here swapping places. Well, they might swap spit too, because they're the Cowboys and Eagles, and we all know how they are. Right?
Let's talk about the schedule, because he said to go over the schedule. We did this last week, but we'll go over it again. And again, I hate doing the win-loss thing, because football, like you said, it is such a week-to-week league. Like, we could look at the Bengals game right now and be like, we're not winning that game. But if Joe Burrow gets hurt like he does most years, you're going to feel completely different.
Right.
That's why. But it's fun to do before the year starts, right? Minnesota and Washington. I would say, I think even though I think that's like a pick'em game. Maybe Minnesota's favored by a point. Many people would say that's a 50-50 game. I think that's a game we should win at home. I really do. I think that's a game we should win. At Washington, that's a 50-50 game, especially being on the road. But at the same time, I say, well, rookie quarterback, we have a good pass rush. I don't know.
Daniel Jones has had his best games against Washington.
Yeah, I don't know.
And they have a new head coach. There's going to be an adjustment period, and we always play well against Washington. Like, I know Washington's due to beat us, but until they do, I always feel like we're going to beat them.
Yeah, and that's what we said last week. Like we said before we even start, we're going to say we're going to get swept by Dallas, and we're going to sweep Washington. Now, it's entirely possible we split with both, but that's how I'm going to look at it going in until proven otherwise. We never beat Dallas, and Washington never beats us. So right off the bat, in division, I'm gonna be optimistic, Baddog. I'm gonna say we go 3-3 in division.
Yeah, I don't see why
I'm gonna say we go 3-3 in the division.
October 20th, we're gonna win that game.
Whether that's sweeping Washington and winning 1 out of 4 against the Eagles and the Cowboys, or whether that's splitting with Washington and splitting those, I think we're gonna find a way to go 3-3 in the division. That's my prediction before the year starts.
We're gonna beat October. The Super Bowl return game. We're gonna beat them.
So out of division, I say, okay, to get to 8 wins, if we do go 3-3 in the division, where can I find 5 wins? Well, the first Minnesota, I think, is a very reasonable game that we could win to start the year at home. Let's even skip that gauntlet of a schedule where I do think it's not crazy to think they could pick off a game within that stretch.
Seattle.
That 6-game stretch, whether that be Seattle, whether that be Pittsburgh, like entirely possible. But let's skip that.
Carolina,
a very winnable game. Tampa Bay is winnable. I know they went to the playoffs last year. I know they won a game that a lot of people didn't think they could win. I think it's a winnable game.
Yeah. I love Baker, but does Baker really scare you?
Especially off the bye. Like, you have another week to prepare for that game. I don't think that's crazy at all. I think they could win that game at home. The Saints, home. At Atlanta, the Colts, those are all games they could win. So I don't think it's crazy to think this team could win 8 games, and that's without accounting for a potential upset against like Pittsburgh or Seattle, like you said, or Cleveland. I don't know. I think 7-8 wins is very reasonable expectations going into the year. Yeah. Very reasonable.
Like I said, weeks 3 through 8 are going to be, those are our toughest.
Yeah.
We're at Seattle. We play the Bengals. We play the Cowboys. We play the Eagles. Play the Steelers. That is definitely a play the Browns. That's very tough. If we can get to the bye with 4 or 5 wins, if we get to the bye at 500, we're going to the playoffs. I'm telling you that right now. If we get to that bye at 5-5, we're in the postseason.
Yeah.
Even 4-6, I feel like we'd have an outside shot. If
now,
we get there,
of course, if we go 1-5 in the division, the wheels are done. The wheels, we're gonna. But I don't know. I think we'll be. We've been relatively competitive not so much the first year with Dable. We kind of did well outside of the division, although I think we went 1-4-1. We tied with Washington in one of the games.
That's your year 3-3 in the division.
I don't think 3-3 is crazy to think. Whether, like I said, whether that's sweeping Washington or splitting across the board, I think that's all in play, especially when you factor in if you're a big believer in the Eagles and thinking they're going to run away with this division, they may not have nothing to play for that last week. So I think 3-3 is very reasonable and possible from within the division this year. I don't think that's crazy.
No.
But yeah, obviously if they win 1 game, they're going to win 5 games this year, 6 games this year. They can't go 1-5 in the division. They don't have a cupcake schedule. Although I will say, going into 2022, you would have said the same thing. Looking at the schedule, you would have said,
we're not beating Baltimore. We're not beating Green Bay. We're not beating Tennessee.
Tennessee had the best record in the AFC the year before.
That's what I'm saying.
Baltimore had one of the best records in the NFL the year before.
Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers.
So things evolve, as the year progresses. So it's why I don't like to read too much into it. But I refuse to look at the schedule before the year starts and say, "Oh, this season we're going to win 5 games." There's no point in watching. I'm just I don't know. Maybe I'm too much of an optimist, but hey, that's how I fan.
I think that's just part of being a fan.
That's part of being a fan, man. So.
I think that's part of being a fan. The people that think we're going to win 2 games, and I don't know why you even bother watching the games then. If that's the way you feel, I mean, why would you waste your time? If the season's already a wash and we're here in August and you have absolutely no faith in them to be any kind of a team. I saw somebody in the chat say Daniel Jones sucks and they won't win a game. I mean, then you shouldn't watch any games. I mean, if they were guaranteed to go 1-17, I wouldn't watch it. Yeah. But they're not, because any given Sunday, Unless Jake Fromm or Mike Lennon was our coach, we just watched that for the comedic horror that happened there. That was the worst Giants football I've ever watched in my life. After Jones got hurt in 2021, that was the worst. That was terrible. I mean, I don't think they could be worse than that. So.
And Corey, I don't think I read this shit. Sheridan, Arkansas. And also, would you guys do a Madden rebuild for the job? I'm not even gonna lie to you, Corey. And I know those are popular videos on YouTube. I don't even have. I think the last time I bought a Madden game was like 2019, 2018. In the offseason, I do like to do. This year I'll try to make that more of an emphasis. I do like to do, salary cap videos and kind of mapping out what I think the team should do in the offseason, but I've never been a guy that's done Madden rebuilds on YouTube. I know they're ultra popular, though, and a lot of people like them.
I don't think I bought a Madden game since 2012.
Yeah. I think
I don't play video games anymore. I don't have time. I don't have time to sleep. So I don't play video. Well, once in a while, I shouldn't say that. They're like, there'll be Friday nights during the summer now because there's not really much going on. But I come down and I play Nintendo, like the old NES on my Wii because my son loves those old games. And, we play Super Mario Brothers or Castlevania or, Sonic is on there too. So he likes that. But yeah, as far as like those games that take time, I don't.
But honestly, Baddog, if I was doing a Madden rebuild, because I would do something very similar to what Shane's done. And I'm not just doing that to suck up to Shane. I've said the things that I think Shane should do before he's done them. And most of the things that I've wanted him to do, he's done. And now I'm not saying that I've agreed. I don't have the intel that he does in terms of evaluating these players, but in terms of the areas that he's put his emphasis on since he's taken the job, factoring in where we were picking, for the most part, I agreed with his strategy. So that's why I'm giving Shane a lot more of a rope, because I do think he's building this team in the way that I would want my general manager to build the team based off what he inherited. So it's gonna take a little bit more time before I come to a final conclusion with Shane, but I like the way he's building the team.
Well, I'll say this too. He didn't cave into John Mara. He didn't pander to the fans and say, well, Barkley's our most popular player, but I want to bring him back, even though it's not for the betterment of the football team. Sometimes you're a GM, you have to make really tough decisions. And there's no doubt that was a tough decision, but he made it. He realized that having Saquon Barkley for whatever the hell whatever he said, having a $40 million quarterback handing off to or whatever he said, $160 million quarterback handing off to a $40 million running back doesn't make sense when you've given up 85 sacks. Barkley had the worst yards per carry of his career last year, 100-yard game. He's a year older. He was hurt again last year with an ankle sprain. The line sucked. Barkley was not going to make a difference on this team this year. He just wasn't, and especially going forward. So I like the fact that Shane had to make that tough decision. He knew he was going to be under some scrutiny from the fan base because people love Saquon. I love Saquon too, especially now that he went to Eagles. It blows. But I just feel like he did it right. Well, he gave all the money to Brian Burns. Well, I'm sorry, an edge rusher is more valuable than a running back. It's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I mean, Authentic had a tweet today. We were talking about, he said Darnell Mooney got the same amount of money as Barkley. That's insane. And I said, it is.
Wide receiver.
But that's what I said. I go, it's not. I go, it's because they get paid on position. Now, it's not the player.
Yeah.
I'm like, Barkley's way better at his position than Mooney is at his. But the top receivers are getting $35 million a year. So Mooney is getting a third of that. Yeah. So, that's what I mean. So take a third of Saquon Barkley's contract, the guy that's like the third tier, like a Devin Singletary, for instance, is getting $5 million or $4 million, whatever he's getting. It's about a third of what Barkley gets. So I think that's part of it is really you're getting paid on your position now as opposed
it's like, think about it like jobs in real life. Like an average lawyer gets paid a lot more than the best garbage man.
Right.
So, like a running back is a easily replaceable position, much like a garbage man, not a position you have to go to school for, right? It's something similar. Like the highest paid garbage man ain't making as much as the average lawyer. And it's the same thing with the wide receiver position. It's just a much more, it's much harder to find an impactful receiver than it is a running back. It's just the reality.
Right. And that's, again, we weren't winning any games at Barkley. And if you have a crappy offensive line, man, he's not going to do anything anyway. So You're going to get your quarterback hurt again. We went through 3 of them last year. They all got hurt at some point. And Barkley also got hurt and didn't have a good year. And we didn't have a good year. And we talk about it. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, and say, clown, listen, you're entitled to your opinion, but you're most teams in the NFL don't have they don't have a great. Obviously, I'm not saying the Giants are a Super Bowl contender. I'm saying that they could win 8 games this year. There's a lot of teams that I think could win 8 games this year that have a question mark at their second cornerback position. There's a lot of teams with a lot of holes around the league if you want to really analyze it. Right at the end of the day, if the Giants pass rush.
Who are Philly's cornerbacks?
What is that?
Who are Philadelphia's cornerbacks?
A lot of teams have holes, right?
That's what I'm saying, though. Who are their cornerbacks? The 2 rookies, right?
Yeah.
And is Bradbury playing safety or is Bradbury a corner? But either way, their secondary is a big question. Their secondary was bad last year. And they had a good draft. They got some rookies in there, but they're rookies. But Philadelphia still picked to win a lot of games. They don't have a good second corner. I obviously there's more question marks in the second corner.
Going into 2022, Bad Dog, you would have said, and it wouldn't have been wrong, that going into the year, we would have had a guy that most felt wasn't capable of being a starting quarterback in the NFL. Jones had a good year. He ended up making the playoffs, winning a playoff game. But going in, there was talk that Tyrod Taylor may end up being started before the year started. Going in, Darius Slayton was thought to be a wide receiver 3 or 4 at best. He had a pretty good year. Going in on the defensive side, you didn't know what the hell you had in the secondary. That team won 9 games. So at the end of the day, do I think it's crazy if the Giants and there goes the training. Do I think it's crazy if the Giants pass rush reaches a very high level, a top 7-8 pass rush in football, that this team can win 7 or 8 games? I don't think that's crazy at all. At the end of the day, if you get after the quarterback, you're going to give your team a chance to win football games. If we play smart football and don't turn the ball over and we get after the quarterback, this team's going to be competitive in a lot of football games this year. I don't think that's crazy. The team won 6 games last year. They won 6 games last year with no Brian Burns, with Andrew Thomas missing half the year, with Saquon Barkley out, with Graham Gano missing half the season.
With Tommy DeVito as our quarterback, with no Malik Neighbors.
Like,
Wandale Robinson.
I don't know. It's why we all have our opinions.
Listen, the secondary is a big question. But if we had a solid secondary, I'd be probably telling you we were going to win 10 or 11 games.
Yeah.
Honestly. And then he would say, well, the quarterback sucks. And to his point here, the Jets win 13 games, you have average quarterback play. How did you go from talking about cornerback 2 to the most important position on any team?
And here's what I'll say, Sad Clown. Maybe you disagree with me. And the Jets will jet, as Bad Dog always says.
The Jets will jet, man.
But on
paper, Hassan Reddick, they're jetting already.
But on paper, if I was a Jet fan, I'm going into you thinking they're winning at least 11 games. I think the Jets have one of the more talented teams in the league. So you're not going to hear me say that they can't win 13 games. I think it's possible. I think they have a really good team, but the Jets will jet, and they will probably find a way not.
The Jets will jet.
But I think the Jets on paper, I think the Jets are just as good, if not better, than the Bills after the Bills lost Stephon Diggs.
Do you think Salah's a good head coach? Do you believe in him?
Salah? To be honest, I don't know a whole lot about him. I mean, I know he was a good defender.
I'm just saying with the way the Jets have played. Now, granted, they lost Aaron Rodgers. He got hurt last year, but even before, have they really even this happened even when Rex Ryan was there. At least they were making the playoffs and getting to AFC Championship games. But the Jets, and I have no problem with the Jets at all. I don't care about the Jets. I hate the Eagles. I hate the Cowboys. The Jets, I root for the Jets when they make the playoffs. But it always seems like every year they're always hyped up about something. And they've done this a million times, bringing in these aging quarterbacks. We saw it with Neil O'Donnell. We saw it with Boomer Esiason. We saw it with Brett Favre. Now we're seeing with Aaron Rodgers. They draft quarterbacks like Mark Sanchez, garbage. They draft Sam Darnold, garbage. They draft Zach Wilson. They gave him 2 years, done. And then they bring in these over-the-hill guys, and they think that, their defense is this, and Garrett Wilson's this. It just never works for them. So, again, I'm not saying the Jets can't be a good team, but until they are a good team, it's hard to say the Jets will not jet.
Well, it's kind of like the same movie over and over again with the Jets, and until it proves out to be
Groundhog Day.
Yeah, because it's just a repeating pattern.
It's Groundhog Day.
It's draft the quarterback really high, he fails, then draft, and then sign a age veteran and hope that he's the savior of the franchise. Then he fails. Whether that, I mean, Testaverde had the 1 year, but whether it be Neil O'Donnell, Vinny Testaverde, Brett Favre, now it's Aaron Rodgers, drafting Mark Sanchez as high as you did, Chad Pennington, Sam Darnold. Like, it's just a repeating cycle with the Jets. They've never had stabilization at that position.
If it's hard to say the Jets will be good, you should play. Nobody said the Giants are going to be good.
Yeah.
We said they could. They could win 8 or 9. They could. That's average. That's average. 8 or 9 games. That's 500.
It wasn't hard for me to say, Saquon. I just said if I'm and with this is without.
I don't think the Jets wouldn't be good. I'm just saying they're not going to win 13 games.
This is without me looking at the Jets' schedule, but I know they play New England twice, who they're going to destroy. I would be surprised if the Jets don't win at least 11 games if Aaron Rodgers plays all year. I think Jets are going to be very good. But hey, the Jets will jet, and I'll probably look like a fool. But
the Jets will jet.
I think Jets are going to be a very good team this year.
Yeah, but I don't think either one of us said the Giants are going to be a good team.
Yeah,
we're talking about the ceiling being 9 wins.
Yeah,
that's average. 9 and 8 is average. We are sitting here saying they were going to go 12 and 5. I understand the argument, but
most teams in the league, I would say you have 6, 7, maybe 8 teams before the year starts that your expectations are 10 wins plus. 6, 7, 8 teams that I think you go into the year, at the start of the year, it's 10 wins plus. I would say 80% of the league, maybe not 80, maybe that's a high number, but you have like 5 teams that I think are like, you go in 5 wins or less. I personally don't think the Giants are one of those teams. I don't think they're one of the bottom 5 teams of the league. I don't fault Giants fans for feeling that way, but on paper, I think we're a little bit better than that. I think Brian Dable, maybe I have a higher opinion of you than a lot of people watching. But you have 4 or 5 teams that going into the year, you're like, they're a 4-win, 5-win team.
Carolina, New England.
Yeah. Then you have about 20 teams that are they could fall anywhere from 6 to 10. And some teams are higher on that list in terms of the top, those 20 teams than others. But I think the Giants are in that group where if everything goes wrong, they could win 5 or 6 games. Like last year when they won 6 games when everything went wrong. And if everything goes right, they can win 10. I think they're in that group. And then I think you have a group of 6, 7 teams that their floor should be 10 wins unless they have devastating injuries.
Like San Fran, Kansas City.
Yeah.
Probably Detroit, Green Bay.
Yeah.
And you might be able to put the Jets in there. If they don't jet, Miami should be really good. Cincinnati, if Joe Burrow stays healthy, they should be really good. Baltimore, you can put in that list. Those are your best teams. The Bills, I don't know what they're going to do now that.
Well, they lost Diggs.
So we know. I mean, I don't think Josh Allen will revert to the way he was as a rookie, but we know he wasn't very good when Diggs wasn't there. So
it'll be interesting to see how Allen does this year. I'm intrigued by it, but they prepared though. They got that tight end in the draft last year. I think who could what's his name is I'm forgetting it off the top. Kincaid.
Yeah,
I could see him having a breakout year. James Cook is a very talented young running back there who's a good pass catcher. So I think the Bills may just reinvent their offense, but it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how Josh Allen adjusts without Stephon Diggs. Does Deonte Banks all of a sudden suck? I don't think Deonte Banks sucks. I just think he's a question mark. We haven't seen him be the undeniable number 1 guy and do it on a week in, week out basis, but he's clearly a guy that the potential is there. I mean, he's got all the measurables. He's athletic. I like him. I think he's going to end up being a really good corner in the NFL. So I'm excited to see him year 2.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident in him. I'm not going to say he's a top tier corner yet, but he gave us a lot to be hopeful that he can be a really good cornerback in this league. He gave us hope to say he could be a true number 1 corner. Maybe not an all-pro corner, but he's a true number 1.
He could be a good starting corner, and I'll be thrilled if that's what he turns out to be. I don't need him to be.
Especially pick him 24th. I mean, you take that because any day.
Yeah. Let's see. Brian Burns is going to have his best year of his career. He will. I think one is going to help the other. I've talked about how I think Kayvon's the guy that I expect to have the big breakout year this year, but I thought that last year too, and I don't think he even though the sacks may suggest it, I don't think he lived up to it. But I think having Burns on the other side, and I think this defense suits Kayvon better. You're not asking him to drop back in coverage as much. You're kind of asking him to do what he does best. But I think one's going to help the other, right? Kayvon, you could make an argument, is the best guy on the other side that Brian Burns that he's ever had. So I think one is going to help the other. And same thing with Dex. I just think that trio being together, they're just going to help one another because it's going to be hard to double any of them now, having that much talent on the defensive line. So.
It'll be interesting to see if Ojulari can stay healthy.
Yeah.
They can move him around a lot. I mean, they've been playing him at some defensive tackle. Ojulari gets forgotten about because of all the injuries, but man, when he was healthy, like he was a disturbance in the force. Like he has some talent. Of course, he just got to stay on the field, but it'll be interesting to see how they use him too. And then he got Isaiah Simmons and he got Bobby Okereke. Like their front seven's pretty solid and it's pretty deep. But yeah, on the defensive secondary is definitely the big question. You got Pinnock, and then you got Tyler Nubin, who's a rookie as your safety, and we really don't know who the hell that cornerback 2 is. I do think you're going to know. I think the Giants are going to go get a.
I really think Cordell Fott is going to be. They're
going
to
be the nickel. You know,
I think Cordell Fott's going to get a shot this year. I don't know if he'll be successful, but I think he's going to get a shot this year. I really.
At least he's not a unicorn. We know he exists, unlike Aaron Robinson, who never sold.
Right? You know, we'll see. We'll see. That cornerback 2 should scare you, man. The cornerback 2 is definitely the biggest question mark, I think, going into the year on the defensive side.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris and Baddog, problem is ain't too many running backs got that generational talent that Saquon Barkley has. That's the reason why Saquon felt the Giants were going to say, Stanley, I get it. But here's the thing, what I'll say, Stanley. And there are exceptions. You could say Christian McCaffrey, but Christian McCaffrey didn't have success in terms of wins and losses until he went to a Super Bowl contending roster with the San Francisco 49ers. More often than not, the generational running backs don't win Super Bowls because you don't build your team around a generational running back. You build your team around a offensive line that could make solid running backs look good. That's still my belief in building a football team. I love Saquon, and while he was here, I rooted my ass off for him, and I always hoped he could be successful, but I agree with what the Giants did with Saquon, as much as it may hurt some fans. I don't believe in paying running backs big money. I just don't, especially ones that are 27. Now, if things had worked out right for Saquon, I was all aboard. I was pounding my fist to extend Saquon early on in his career before he got hurt. I think that is the right approach. You've seen that happen with Christian McCaffrey after 2 or 3 years. If Barkley stayed healthy through his first 2 or 3 years in the league, I would have been for the early extension, getting it out of the way so you could maximize his second contract. But after he got hurt and you couldn't extend until after his 5th year, the Giants would have been fools to give Saquon Barkley that kind of money. He may work out for the Eagles, but that's a different situation. It didn't make sense to give him that money here. Not at 27.
I mean, the Chiefs don't have a generational running back, right? They have a generational quarterback.
Yeah.
The Eagles have not had a generational running back, and they've been pretty good. Dallas, I wouldn't say Zeke was
he was for a short period of time.
He was really good, but I don't think he was generational.
Yeah.
We won Super Bowls with Brandon Jacobs and Ahmad Bradshaw, and it was a great combo, but neither one of those are generational guys. You don't need a generational running back to win. The best running back I ever saw was Barry Sanders. He didn't win anything. And that's in the running back position was way more important than it is today. Right.
In my lifetime, I think, all right.
Adrian Peterson, how great was him? I mean, he unbelievable.
Well, let's go over the guys that were great elite running backs when they played that have won Super Bowls. Terrell Davis, Marshall Faulk, Terrell Davis, Marshawn Lynch, and I'm probably forgetting somebody in my lifetime. Oh, Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith, Marshall Faulk.
Not elite. Not elite.
Those are probably the 4, right? I mean, but other than that, yeah, I mean, the Patriots never had an elite running back. I mean, I guess you could argue Edgerrin James with the Colts. I think he was.
I don't know if he was elite, but he was really good.
He was really good. You could at least make that argument, but more often than not, you don't build your team around a running back. You build your team around your quarterback and your offensive line.
The other thing I'll say is, at the beginning of his career, he was generational. At 27 years old and a multitude of injuries, including a torn ACL, he's not the same. I don't know how many times I watch a game and would say to Chris, his rookie year, that's a touchdown. he got caught from behind a ton. Like that explosiveness, that extra gear that he had in 2018, not there anymore.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been there in some time. Now, again, I'm not saying he'll be bad with Philly. He should, if he stays healthy, he should easily have 1,500 yards from scrimmage, easily, because he's got a better situation there.
Yeah.
But he hasn't shown the ability to stay healthy. He is 27. It's not an old man, but it's coming out of your prime at that position. 27 is not old, but at that position, especially with the beating he's taken over the course of his year, you are starting to come out of your prime at 27.
Yeah.
So it just didn't make sense. Saquon Barkley was not going to be a difference maker with the Giants, with the way their team was constructed. And you got to go back to basics. So you have to build in the trenches. He did that. He added Runyon. They went out there and they got Illuminor. They got a different offensive line coach. They added Brian Burns to the defensive line. He built on the line of scrimmage. He drafted Malik Neighbors. He plays in the line of scrimmage. This is where the game is still won and lost. And as great as Barkley was, if we gave Barkley the money, we would not have Runyon. We would not have Illuminor. I don't know what our offensive line would look like. But Barkley did not have a good year behind this offensive line last year. And teams were still going to do the same thing. They would stuff the box and say, go ahead, dude, run into an 8-man box.
It's a short shelf life for a team that's not in a Super Bowl window. It didn't make sense to extend Saquon.
If we were good.
Yeah.
Makes all sense in the world.
So it is what it is. It just didn't make sense for our situation. That's not to say that Barkley won't be successful with the Eagles. He should be. They have a great offense. All the weapons over there in the offensive line. So here it didn't make sense. Not for the amount of years that you'd be able to get production out of him. Just the guy says if we don't fix cornerback and Washington we win 4. I'll take it 1 week at a time. I'll take it 1 week at a time. I'm not going to go crazy going with the year and say this team's winning 4 games. Because we all know.
I'm saying, so just a guy, you're saying we win 6 if they don't get Brandon Ayuk, because that's just 2 games.
That's 2 games, yeah. So, I mean, listen, we all know, if we're being honest, if the team starts 2-0, at that point, we're all going to be saying this team should make the playoffs. This team should get to 9-8 or at least 9-8, right? So, let's take it 1 week at a time. Let's wait till after week 1. Then we can hit the panic button. I'll be right there with you guys. If we lose by 20 points to Minnesota, we'll hit the panic button. This team's winning 3-4 games. Hell on earth. Blow it up. But let me at least get through the first half of the first game before we start setting this team on fire.
If they come out and lose to Minnesota the way they did at Dallas, we can set them on fire.
Yeah. If they get blown out against Minnesota, hit the panic button a little bit. I'll still be like, all right, it's only 1 week, but hit the panic button a little bit. But I'm not going to panic quite yet.
I'm not giving up on the season. There's a lot of question marks here. We haven't been a good team for a decade outside of a couple of years. I understand that, stock is low with the Giants, but I, as a fan, refuse to say the season's over on August 23rd or whatever the hell today. I won't do that. Do I have my reservations about the problems this team has? And do I? Of course. And that includes Daniel Jones. Massive question mark. Massive. Huge.
It doesn't just include Daniel Jones. It starts with Daniel Jones. Like, I think most people, if we had more confidence in Daniel Jones as a fan base, and of course there's some fans that have more confidence than others, but I think by and large, most Giant fans at this point, some are more down on him than others, but I think the majority of Giant fans at this point don't believe he's a guy that could take us
faith in him
to the promised land or even close to it, right? And hopefully, he makes me change my opinion on that. But I think if most Giant fans had more faith in Daniel Jones this year, we wouldn't be talking about the whole at cornerback 2. We'd be like, okay, we have a quarterback that could win us football games. The pass rush is good enough to keep us in it. We got now a number 1 So, at the end, it all boils down to the quarterback. And I think that's what is keeping this team ceiling from being, higher than it is, which we both agree the ceiling's 10. And that's if everything breaks right. And that's due to the quarterback more so than anything else.
To your point, all you got to do is look at the people that do have the utmost faith in Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Don't say the Giants are going to win 10, 11 games because they actually believe that somehow in year 6, Daniel Jones is going to do a complete role reversal of what he's been his first 5 years in the league. I am hopeful, again, I'll say hopeful, that with Malik Neighbors, with a healthy Wandale, a Darius Slayton, a Jalen Hyatt, a healthy Bellinger and Theo Johnson, and an approved offensive line with Dable calling the plays, I'm hopeful that Daniel Jones can have the best year of his career. And that's not saying much because he hasn't really had a standout season. If Daniel Jones, let me go on record and say this shit right now. If Daniel Jones, and I don't know if this is even possible, if the dude can eliminate those stupid plays, not a bad throw, the stupid plays like the pick six he threw,
which he did do in 2022.
Right. If he leads the league in interception percentage, or right at the top of interception percentage, that guy's got the best year of his career. I'm saying that right now. Okay. That's the biggest question. This is why I can't fully endorse Daniel Jones, because I've seen the deer in the headlights, the stupid play, the stare down, the pat late. I've seen it too long, too many times to give him a full endorsement. But if somehow he figures it out, and I don't know that he can because it's been a long time and he hasn't figured it out yet, he'll have the best year of his career. I really believe that, which is why, again, as my heart, my fandom says, our ceiling is 10 wins, because I do believe if he can eliminate those plays, we got a really damn good chance of doing that.
Yeah.
Daniel, don't make an ass of me.
Big Moose says, please bring back Earth, Wind, and Fire running back. I think we are. Not that I'm saying they're going to be as productive as that tandem, but I think we are definitely heading back towards a running back by committee approach. Love to see you guys. It was so much fun. Seems like a lifetime ago. Oh, they were great. I mean, and Tiki Barber before them was great too. Clancy, what's going on? He says, I'm not ready to panic yet. I, as a fan, still trust Dable. And I know this year may have some bumps even early on, but I think we start 2-0 and then go from there. As always, good to see you guys. Clancy, man, thanks so much for being here. Listen, I'm with you, man. I'm going into the year, not that I'm saying we're definitely going 2-0, but I'm going into the year, Clancy, thinking 2-0 is very obtainable. I think it's possible. And until the team doesn't start 2-0, I'm not going to hit the panic button. Right? Let me see how they do against Minnesota. If we beat Minnesota, let's see if we can beat a rookie quarterback with Jaden Daniels. If we start 2-0, then we get to that gauntlet that we've been talking about for 6 weeks. But let's get there 2-0. Let's get there with some confidence.
I see people in the chat saying if we haven't played a freaking game yet, so everything
this is my if it's the same thing from the negative side. If
right.
It's all hypothetical.
We haven't played yet.
There hasn't been a game played. If you're right, if hell's on fire and the Giants win 3 games, you'll be right. If hell is not on fire and the Giants stay relatively healthy, I'll probably be closer to right with my prediction. So let's see what happens.
Right. At this point, every team, maybe outside of the Chiefs, is if every team. Philadelphia's saying if Saquon Barkley can stay healthy all year, if our guys stay healthy all year, if Josh Allen doesn't revert back to what he was because they lost Stephon Diggs, if Jordan Love improves, if Jordan Love takes a step back, if the Cowboys don't sign CeeDee Lamb, if Brock Purdy goes back, you can do this all the time. It's August. Everything right now is if. There are no guarantees. There's never a guarantee in sports, ever. So much is based on what if this happens. Because how else are you going to make a prediction? You can't make any kind of predictions.
Everything's based on ifs. Yeah, if.
Right,
if Daniel Jones can do what he did in 2022, the Giants can win 9 games this year. That's not crazy at all.
If he sucks, we might win 4 games.
If Daniel Jones could limit turnovers, you got to figure Malik Neighbors will be able to create more big plays by himself than that team did. If he could take care of the football, yeah, the team could win 9 games. Why would I think otherwise?
Right.
Will he do it? I don't know. Stay tuned. We'll find out starting week 1 against the Minnesota Vikings.
We will.
But but guys, we are going to close it out. It's 11:06. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you guys do come back to see us,
We'll be live tomorrow for the Jets and Giants.
Of course, we'll be live for the Giants game on Bad Dog. If the game is televised in Bad Dog's area,
right? It should be.
It will be if everything goes according to plan with the way that he sees it in his channel lineup. But we'll see if the cable is still working tomorrow morning. Sometimes the internet goes out at my house. If it does,
Right.
I'll have to
if the creek don't rise, if I wake up tomorrow,
if we wake up tomorrow, if Bad Dog doesn't have to go to the bathroom 9 times during the stream.
I don't think I went once tonight.
Yeah. But
did I go once? I don't think I did.
You went once last game. It was like
no, tonight. I don't think I went once.
You haven't gone at all. No.
Wow, I'm getting better.
Yeah. So we'll see, but we'll see how it all plays out.
It's a Saturday. It's my cheat day, so my body will be holding water because of carbs. So I should not have to pee that much.
All right.
Sunday's a different story. When the carbs are out of my body on Sunday and my body starts to get rid of all the water, I'm pissing every 5 minutes, and I'm old. It happens.
But yeah, if you guys want to swing by, we will be live tomorrow on Bad Dogs. And then if you guys are free on Tuesday, I think we'll be doing the Tuesday show on Bad Dogs. Right. And then if you're up for it, we're going to be doing 2 shows a week. So we'll be back here next Friday before we take a break. And then if the NFL starts the way that it's supposed to, the Giants will have their first game a week after that. There's no guarantees in life. Everything is ifs. So we'll find out how it plays.
There is a guarantee. Chris and I will be here all year for you guys.
If YouTube stays in business.
Right. But yeah. We plan on being here a lot for you guys and girls this year. No, let's just hope it's a great year. If it's a great year, we'll have a lot more fun than if it's a bad year. I really don't want to break out the toilet paper playbook again. I don't want to play clown music, but if they suck, I will break that stuff out. If they're good, I will break this stuff out. So let's hope.
But you guys have a great rest of your night. If you guys have a comfy bed, I hope you get a good night's sleep. But guys, have a great rest of your night. We'll see you guys tomorrow on Bad Dogs and ifs and nuts and candies and butts. Have a good night, guys.
Christmas later. Peace.